So you want to play Smite 2, but you have no idea what to build. Or you've been playing a good bit of Smite 2, and you have no idea what to build. Well, you've come to the right place, fellas, because I, Cosmos, will be explaining each and every single item in the game on a 3-step / part basis. We're going to talk about first, what every item is and what it does. Second, when and where you would buy an item.
Wow.
Where in your build you would buy it, what situation you'd buy it, yada, yada, yada. And then third, we'll talk about how strong currently each and every one of the items is, in my opinion. This one is going to be a little bit more volatile. That one will change all the time. So the most important things are, the first two things, what everything is and when you build it. And so, yeah, this is going to be as new player friendly as I can possibly make it. We might make some Smite 1 references for people that have played before, just to provide some comparisons. But yeah, let's get right into it. There are a number of items you can buy in Smite. When you first load in, the biggest things you're going to want to choose from are in these first three categories. When you open your shop, this is what default appears on your screen. And you're probably going to dip into each one of these categories when you first load in. The Relics category, the Consumables category, and the Starter category. First, we'll start with the Relics category. You can only get one of these every game. You can only choose one, and after you've bought one, you can't go back on your choice. You only get one of them. So first is Aegis of Acceleration. This sucker, you see it binds to your F key by default. If I press F, it'll make me immune to damage for 1.5 seconds, and it makes me a little faster. So, you'll figure out how good this is after you've played a little bit more, but it can be quite useful against those burstier characters if that's what you think you're going to have a problem with. We got Blink Rune. This is one of the safest ones you can buy. You are teleported to a target location up to 5.6 meters away, so you can see I've got a little ruler on the ground here. You can see 4.8. See, here's right there about. Takes you to instant teleport. You can use it in combat, but it's on a really long cooldown. See that one that immunes you to damage is on 140? This guy's on 240, so 4 minutes versus 2 minutes and 20 seconds. So although this is one of the most potent ones, probably the most potent relic overall to get you out of dangerous situations, it is quite a long cooldown. Phantom Shell. This thing gives a shield to you and your allies. 4 seconds. It reduces the damage of basic attacks, and you can pass through player-made walls. 120-second cooldown. So pretty low. Good safety. Not as good, theoretically, as being immune to damage for 1.5 seconds, and not as good as just being able to quickly, blink away from dangerous situations, but low cooldown, and it helps your whole team. And then you can walk through those walls. So if you're playing against characters that have a lot of player-made walls and you need to walk through them and you don't have a way to get around them very easily, it can be very nice, right? Purification Beads is your fourth choice. Once again, you can only get one of these, so you got to choose wisely, and you can't go back on it. This one makes you immune to crowd control abilities for 2 seconds. Strong, 150-second cooldown. Very good. Against very particular abilities. There are a lot of abilities in this game where it's like, if you get hit by it, you're just gonna die. So, Fenrir ultimate ability, Ragnarok, he goes up, runs up, bites you, and then, can run you around for 1.5 seconds, I believe. So that one's pretty dangerous. You might want to get this if you're against that. And if you don't have any other way to become crowd control immune, this can be quite attractive. So typically you're getting this on squishier characters. The Aegis and the beads, and then the blink are more of a squishier option. And then Phantom Shell is usually your tankiest buying that because it can help, everybody on the team. And then we got Sundering Arc. So this is like a objective secure item. Instantly deals damage in a small cone in front of you to jungle monsters and jungle bosses, and you can also deal damage to gods, but it does a lot less. So typically you buy this on a tank to secure buffs or secure objectives. And it's probably one of the weaker ones right now. It has gone through phases already where it was too strong, and now, in my opinion at least, it's a little bit too weak. really easy to outburst it. But yep, it is an option. Very good at securing buffs, mainly, is what I've found. So, just depends on how you want to play. But typically, I would say you're going for any of these four, and then just this one if you're a very particular character. You're trying to go for a very particular playstyle. But yep, only getting one of these. All very potent effects, varying cooldowns, and you just gotta figure out which ones you like the most in different scenarios, and that just comes with time. The safest one you can go is probably the Blink Rune. It's just a get-out-of-jail-free card a lot of the time, so you want to start with that one, though it is a 4-minute cooldown, so a little tricky, right? All right, next up, we've got a Consumables section. So these are all one-time use, most of them. Yep, they're all one-time use. You buy them and you pop them. You see they populate in this consumable area down here, right next to my relic choice, and you can have 2 of any different type at the same time. You can stack some of them as well. The health potions, you can have up to 3 of these at any given time. These 3 potions will group up in one. Health potions, mana potions, multi-potions. All these potions will just heal your stats over time, you see. My mana is regenerating over time. My health will be regenerating over time, except my max health, so it doesn't show that. I don't know. I actually don't know why it shows the mana regenerating, but not my health. But you see, like, one-time use, I just press the C button, pop that. You can actually swap where they are if you really want by holding down Alt and dragging. Swap the buttons. But the health potion just restores your health over time for a duration. Mana potion restores your mana over time for a duration. And the multi-pot restores both of them, but a little less for a duration. So pretty straightforward. Provide you a little bit of extra sustain if you deem it necessary for a relatively cheap cost. But if you buy a lot of them, then it's going to cost a lot more, right? Vision Ward and Sentry Ward are very similar items. You can only have 2 of a time of a Vision Ward, and you can only have 1 at a time of a Sentry Ward in your inventory. And they go in the same slot, and you just throw them out there and you place them wherever you want, and they give you, as you can see on my map, that area that gets lit up. You get vision over a certain area. They both last 2 minutes long. The difference is the Sentry Ward can see enemy wards. So if an opponent has placed a ward over where I have the Sentry Ward now, I'll be able to go over and kill it in 3 basic attacks. But if they place it near my normal ward, my Vision Ward, won't be able to see that. So these are particularly good when you start trying to like catch people coming out of the jungle for rotations, or you want to make sure that nobody's in the stealth grass. You're going to want to pick up some wards. And usually you want to save as much money as possible and not buy wards, but you know, depending on the game, the situation you're in, you may or may not need to get some wards. You do notice the Sentry Ward is quite expensive, so what I typically do is I like to buy the Vision Wards, maybe like 1 every time I leave if I have the extra money, and then if like I notice that they are also warding, then I might pick up some Sentry Wards so that I can control the space. And you'll learn which spaces you want to control more than others as you play more games. Just, want to control space over objectives and whatnot. Health Chalice, next up. So this one is like, it's exactly the same as the health potion, except you notice how the health potion, they get consumed and you use them. Like all these potions and wards, they're one-time uses, they go away after. The Health Chalice costs significantly more than the Health Potion, has the same exact effect as the Health Potion, but the Health Chalice comes with 3 charges, and every time you return to your base, those charges refill. So see, I've used all 3 charges. I come back, they all refill. This is my little base. I'm in a practice game right now, so this little circle in the center is the base. So if I press B and go back to it, that's where I go, and it gives me back my chalice charges. So this is quite good if you want efficient gold expenditure, because of course one of these chalices is going to be 6 purchases of a health potion. They have the exact same effect. So if I buy this early on, it'll have more use. Really, really good item. This is one of my favorite items to buy. And then these last 2 items, Elixir of Intelligence and Elixir of Strength, they basically just increase how much damage you deal. And you're going to want to buy the Intelligence one if you're trying to scale your Intelligence, and you're going to want to buy the Strength one if you want to scale your Strength. So depending on the type of character you are, you're going to buy either one. And these are extremely luxury potions that you buy after you have every item in your build finished. There's not really much of a reason to buy them until your whole build is finished, simply because your items are just going to give you more bang for your buck when you buy an item versus when you spend 3,000 gold on one of these. So yeah, you save those for the end when you've got a lot of extra money. Your middle tower is under attack. So it is. And these are also stackable. So you just buy this sucker and you just insta-pop it. You can buy another one and keep popping. You see down here it's populating how many I have. You can have 99 of both, I think. Though you will pretty much never have enough gold to get that far, so probably only ever getting like, 1, 2, maybe even 3 if the game goes really long of these in any given game. But yeah, really good once you have everything else finished. Now we're moving on. These relics and consumables, all done. Now we're moving on to the actual like items. The first one is the starter items. You can only have one of these per match. And once you have one, you can't sell and get a different one. They're very strong items that are meant to be stronger than other items that cost the same amount of gold. And the reasoning is you can only have one of them. So you'll see when I buy one of these, it populates in the bottom left here. See, it's slightly separated from the other 6 slots here. So this is the starter item slot. And they all have pretty potent effects. And you're going to want to buy different ones depending on different situations. Already it's locked it in. I can't even sell it. Oh, no, I can. Nice. Once you leave the base, you're not able to sell it. But for whatever reason, when I'm in the practice mode, the second I choose one, it doesn't let me sell it at all. But yeah, let's talk about Selflessness and War Flag first. These are the support starters. So when you're trying to be like a straight-up tank for your team, these are the 2 you're choosing from, War Flag and Selflessness. Selflessness and War Flag will both give you sustain when you get minion assists or jungle monster assists. And they give you some tanky stats, see? Both 10 protections of each and maximum health. And they have cool effects as well. The Selflessness one, if your teammate close to you gets hit by a hard crowd control effect, you give them a shield based on your maximum health. It can only happen once every 30 seconds. Pretty strong effect. The War Flag, on the other hand, when you get a minion assist or a jungle monster assist, you provide a buff to everyone, both you and your teammates in the near vicinity, that buffs movement speed and attack speed up to 10 times. So both pretty strong, and the situations you're going to buy them in are going to vary, and you got to feel that one out for yourself. And then these starter items upgrade. Very cool items at certain levels. Support starters, so these full tank starters upgrade at level 15. You have the chance to upgrade them. You have to go back and spend extra gold for that. So they cost 550 up front, and then you have to spend 1250, I believe is the number, yep, to upgrade it to its final form. And you don't have the ability to even do that until you hit level 15. And they kind of just upgrade to better versions of the first tier, these support ones. So get a little bit more stats, see, from 10 protections, 30. I believe they're actually both the same stats, yeah. 10 to 30 protections and 200 health instead of 60. And then this one just gives a bigger shield than the base one, 8% of the health bar, upgraded to 15% of the health bar. And you get 1 bonus gold per second, so no more gold from getting minion kills or assists. Does it even give gold? Yeah, it does. Okay. You get bonus gold when you get minion kills or when you get minion assists. And yeah, the War Flag does the same thing. Just gets a better variant of the base one. Yep. Pretty simple. So you're buying those on your straight. You're trying to be a straight tank. Those are what those are for. Next 2, they're going to be 2 starters for every like kind of role that you're playing here. These are the jungle starters. So you'll see the different roles that you have. This is for the jungle role typically. You don't have to build them on the jungle role, but they're pretty good. Very good for the jungle role. And outside of, if you're not playing the jungle role, you're playing like a different mode. You're not even playing Conquest. These can be solid items for use still, even if you're not exclusively playing in the jungle. And we'll talk about that right now. So they both give 50 max health, max mana. And they give you either strength or intelligence, depending on which one you have that is higher. from your items. And it prioritizes strength, I've noticed, over intelligence if you have the same exact amount of strength as intelligence. And this makes it really easy for you to clear jungle camps. You see, you get 50% extra damage against jungle camps, but you deal 25% less damage to lane minions. So, very good if you're trying to clear jungle camps. And then these guys have slightly varying effects as well, aside from all those. Up to that point, they were the same. But on this Bumba's Golden Dagger, your basic attacks will have like a effect that hits. Your basic attacks will also hit things around the target you're hitting for a little bit of extra damage. Versus this one, the Bumba's Cudgel. After using an ability, your basic attack deals 20 true damage, and it reduces your active cooldowns by 0.5 seconds. So if you're playing a character that weaves basic attacks in between their abilities, it's going to be quite strong. Versus if you're doing a little bit more auto-attacking, or you're just, not even using abilities very much, the Bumba's Golden Dagger can be better. These ones, unlike the support ones, every single other starter in the game, you need level 20 to have the ability to upgrade. And they become very, very potent when they upgrade. This Bumba's one, Golden Dagger, upgrades into Bumba's Spear. Just gets a little bit better stats. It actually loses the health and the mana. You get some cooldown.
Your middle tower.
You still get either intelligence or strength, depending on which one's higher. And then just like an upgraded form of what it was before. But this one's a little different. It's not just straight upgrade from the base form. This is plus 75 true damage on your basic attacks when you're hitting jungle camp structures and jungle bosses. And you do 50% extra damage in general for those jungle camp structures and jungle bosses as well. And then, sheesh, that's a lot of rating. On top of all that, you get 10% strength and intelligence buff for 30 seconds when you kill a big jungle camp creature or structure or jungle boss. And you heal a good bit. So, pretty strong effect if you're clearing a lot of jungle camps. Or if you want to focus down jungle bosses or just anything in the jungle, this is quite good. And then you lose that reduced damage on the lane minions as well, which is kind of nice. Eye starter and joust less. Yep. Bumba's Hammer, on the other hand, this one is very similar. You get that 75 extra true damage on your basic attacks on jungle stuff, plus 50% extra damage, and on your abilities, do all those things in the jungle in addition to the structures. And then it's got a bit of an upgrade to when you're weaving those auto attacks in between abilities, you get 40 true damage. And instead of reducing your cooldowns by 0.5 seconds, you reduce them by 0.75 seconds. And you heal for 60 health. So quite a strong one. Like I was talking about, you would buy the Bumba's Hammer if you're weaving in a lot of basic attacks between your abilities. And the Bumba's Spear if you're not. Pretty straightforward on that one. Next up, we have the intelligence / mid laner / mage. Your magical damage dealer starter items, Conduit Gem and Sands of Time. Conduit Gem, going to give you 25 intelligence, 100 max mana, 1 mana regen, and this is very good at clearing waves. So you'll see every 0.5 seconds you gain a stack, and it makes your next ability deal 3 true damage per stack, half for gods, and removes all stacks. And you can get 20 stacks. So that's 60 extra damage to the minion wave if you have maximum stacks. 30 on gods. So really good for your wave clear if you're not a great wave clearer. Versus Sands of Time, give you a bit of intelligence, a little bit less. Similar mana regen, right? This one gives 100 max mana and 1 regen versus just 2 regen. And this one will give you more mana regen per second the less mana you have. So this one's really good for never running out of mana. And you do true damage, 10 true damage to minions with your abilities. So a little bit of the true damage. But the big one there is the cooldown rate. This one gives no cooldown rate.
Your middle tower.
This one does give cooldown rate. So if you're just ability spamming and you already have decent clear, then you might want to pass over the Conduit gem and go into the Sands of Time. I'd say in general, the Sands of Time is a little bit more popular. So spammers typically go Sands of Time, and people that are really just trying to burst you in a couple abilities, and they just really want to add an extra oomph onto that burst, typically you could consider the Conduit gem. And you'll see why in these upgrades, actually. Archmage's gem. So a lot more intelligence, a little bit more mana, a little bit more regen. You need level 20 to get this, similar to the every starter except for the support starters. And this will give you a little extra punch based on your intelligence. 40% extra magical damage on your damaging ability on a 20-second cooldown. So if you're playing a character that, you know, really is just trying to one-shot somebody with like 1-2 abilities, you're less trying to do like the cycling through abilities and just poke people a lot, this is going to be your go-to. Versus Sands of Time, when you upgrade this guy, you get even more mana for the mana that you're missing, and you get additional intelligence based on how much mana you have, and you get a little bit more cooldown rate as well. So a lot better for those spammers, and you'll have a bit more intelligence with this one over the other one. So if you got like higher scaling, you want to poke more, or you just want the most consistent starter, this is the more consistent of the two. Definitely more people buying Sands of Time and Pendulum of Ages than people buying Conduit. The Conduit is very much geared towards those guys who really have either trouble clearing or are really looking to add that extra burst potential onto their late game. Next two starters, these are for your hunters, your auto attack damage dealers that are trying to deal damage with their strength stat. The typical ADC, attack damage carry. First, we have Death's Toll, which will make it so you regen a good bit of your health and mana when you land a basic attack. Gives you a good bit of strength, a little bit of health. Versus Leather Cowl, which is not going to have any sustain at all, but is going to be geared towards dealing quite a bit more damage. As you'll see, this one gives 0 attack speed versus this one gives 10% base and gives 10% more if there's an ally near you. So 20% extra attack speed in addition to a little bit of strength. So I like the Leather Cowl because I like doing damage if I'm going to buy one of these. Death's Toll is good for sustain. Death's Toll is a little bit on the outs right now. Not the strongest starter. In fact, both of these starters are not that popular. Outside of Conquest, I think I like Cowl a lot. But in Conquest right now, the carries, ADCs, are actually building jungle starters. Because the jungle starters are better, and they do a lot for you. But the upgrades on this, Death's Embrace, you need level 20 for these. It is pretty much a direct upgrade to the T1. You regen a lot more when you hit those basic attacks. And it actually reduces your non-ult cooldowns for every basic attack you hit by 0.33 seconds, so a third of a second. Pretty cool effect, but like we said, it's a little bit weak right now. Might want to compare the numbers at the time you're watching this video to see it might be stronger. Because it is a little bit weak right now, I would say. Cowl, on the other hand, it gives you even more attack speed, 45% attack speed potentially from this guy. That's a lot of attack speed. So if you're just looking to attack as quickly as possible and really just like slam your opponent with basic attacks, this is the way to go. A lot of attack speed from that sucker. So as far as just being a straight auto attacker goes, the Hunter's Cowl is going to provide you the greatest benefit. One thing I don't think I mentioned is that the support starters, those cost $12.50 to upgrade once you hit level 15. These other guys, they all cost $1,500 to upgrade once you hit level 20. And so the last two starters we're going to talk about are Warrior's Axe and Bluestone Pendant. These are typically for your pokers, your tankier characters. Though damage dealers can definitely build these too. Typically you're going to see them ran more on your hybrid characters that are looking to trade a little bit more and poke you out. So the Warrior's Axe is going to be the tankier starter. Going to give you some prots, a little bit of strength, and a passive that deals decent damage and restores your health a little bit. And that you could proc that every 10 seconds on enemy gods. versus the bluestone, which is going to be having no protections, but has a good bit of regen, a little bit more strength. And it's going to make your abilities deal ticking physical damage over 2 seconds every time you hit one. So greater for clear, but a little bit lesser for survivability and like a straight up trade. The bluestone is a little stronger right now in the meta than the warrior's axe is. It just doesn't feel as potent to have the axe, even with the upgrade here. So when the axe upgrades, it gets more protections, more strength, and it hits a little bit harder, and it restores a little bit more health. So pretty much direct upgrade from the T1er, and it deals more damage based on how many protections you have. We're in like a very bursty meta right now, the creation of this video. So this item's a little weak. The damage is decent on both the base form and the upgraded form, but the heal is kind of lackluster. So it doesn't feel that great. On the other hand, Bluestone Pendant, Bluestone Brooch feels really good. A lot of really good poke, a lot of sustain, and in a burst meta, when I'm trying to just like trade a little bit and maybe like hit them and back off, hit them and back off, I can do that a lot more often with Bluestone Brooch than I can with Warrior's Axe, and I very much notice the damage that this thing is dealing. So you're typically buying this one. This item is very, very good, very, very popular on anyone that is using just a lot of abilities. Not even just tanks, damage healers can use this very well too, particularly if they're casting a lot of abilities. So, yep, Bluestone, very, very strong item. Moving on, we got to talk about the tier 3 offensive items. So there are a whole lot of items in here, and this is where our list of 3 things comes in very important. We got to explain this as best as possible, what the item is and what it does, when and where you would build it, because these are going to fill out your 6 slots in your build here. And then third thing is how strong it is currently, in my opinion. I missed the beginning. Can we restart? No! No! Yeah, in Smite 1, there's only one upgrade choice. Or Smite 1, there are 2 upgrades. Yeah, it's a little simpler, Chev. Though they might add that second option. We'll see. Alright, so first item we got, we're just going to go left to right, top, bottom. Devourer's Gauntlet. This is like you're playing the long game item. Or the long con. This item gives you a very solid amount of strength and a very solid amount of lifesteal that you stack up by dealing damage. So, stacking item. And when it evolves, you get extra penetration. Very powerful effect. You would build this item as early as possible. Either your first or second item after your starter. So one of these 2 slots. You want to get this stacking as quickly as possible and get it going. Right now, in my opinion, it's not the strongest item. It's just outshined by other items. And the meta is kind of just prioritizing as much DPS as possible. Because the lifesteal this gives is not that amazing. The strength is decent, but you're mainly buying it for the flat penetration, and it's just not worth it. Like, you can get online faster with other options, so I don't find it to be that great right now. Is it meta to sell the lamp after building? No. Legacy is talking about this character in particular. He has a lamp that I just sold so that you guys can actually see all 6 slots. That lamp is really good, Legacy. It gives you a lot of stats. It scales every stat you have by 17%. So you don't want to sell that guy. Alright, moving on. Hydra's Lament. This guy is going to give you some strength, some mana regen, some max mana, and some cooldown rate. So really loaded item. And it's going to give you additional basic attack damage, 30% extra. For every basic attack that comes, or for the first basic attack that you use after using an ability. So really good if you're a character that weaves abilities, or weaves basic attacks in between abilities. You would build this as soon as first item, and you can build this item at any point in your build. It's going to be strong regardless of where you build it. Really strong early game stats with that additional mana. Of course, it's going to be a little bit stronger later on in your build in terms of how much it impacts your damage output, since it does scale your basic attack by 30%. So the higher you can get your basic attack to hit before you build it, the better, right?
Your middle
But
tower
the sustain
is
stats
under
are so
attack.
good on this guy that you can get it whenever you want, really. I've been building it first. You can build it second, third. It really don't matter that much. Just really like whenever you feel like you need it. Sometimes people build this T2, which gives you a lot of mana regen, and they just leave it, and they get other stuff, and then they finish it whenever they feel comfortable. Completely fine thing to do. And how strong is this item? This item is strong. It's a good item. I'd say it's not like you have to build it every single game. It's very much only an item that you'd build on gods that are trying to weave those basic attacks between abilities, and you're building more burst oriented, so just stacking a lot of strength and just trying to hit as hard as possible as quickly as possible with your ability basic attack combos. Transcendence. This item is similar to the Devourer's Gauntlet. It's going to give you a lot of power, a lot of strength rather, and you got to stack it up to make it as potent as possible. So instead of getting a bunch of lifesteal, this guy's going to give you a bunch of mana and a bunch of strength that you got to stack up. And when it evolves, you get a N flat penetration. And then, of course, you stack it up by dealing damage to anything. And this item you want to build similarly, because it's a stacking item. You want to build this as early as possible. Typically, first item is when you'd build this if you want to build it. Though you can build it later down the line in your build. If you find you've got a free slot, you built other items, and you're like, wow, I just want the biggest strength spike possible. This is going to be, I do believe, the highest strength item you can get in the game, because it gives you additional strength equal to 2% of your mana from items. So it gives you a whole bunch of strength. A whole bunch. So if you just want massive damage, just the highest strength possible, this is what you want. Transcendence. And infinite mana. So there are characters in the game, namely Uller, who will really abuse this item to the maximum potential. But yeah, this item is very, very good right now. And yeah, if you're just trying to go for that maximum damage output, this is what you're going to want on your burst characters in general. Your ability burst characters is when this is really good. Oathsworn Spear. Now here's a new item. If you play it coming over from Smite 1, and you're like, what the heck is this new thing? Like, this item is very new, and it is very good. There are very few ways to get flat penetration, which what flat penetration does basically is you ignore X number of your enemy's protections, X being however much flat penetration you have. So really good against a squishy target that doesn't have a lot of protections. You know, like going to be really effective against someone that has like 50 protections versus someone that has like 200. You're taking a lot higher percentage from the guy that has lower protections with the flat penetration, right? So this is a very strong item. What it does is it reduces your enemy's physical protections when you hit them with an ability. 1 protection per your player level. So when would you build this? You'd probably want to build it after you've gotten a few levels. So typically you'd build this maybe third item or later. There are a lot of different places you can build it. I mean, you can build it early on too. You really can build it whenever, but typically you would want to get a little bit more of your core itemization online before you launch into this guy. Just because it scales up a little slower, and other items are just going to be more core than this one because it doesn't give you any sustained stats, no mana, no health, no lifesteal, nothing like that. So really, really good on your characters that are building more hybrid and are looking to maybe help your team out a little bit more with the shredding protections aspect. You're typically going to see this built on your ability damage dealers that are building tanky, like I said, like a Thor or a Thanatos. Can be quite strong as a more of a situational item, like I said, after you finish some of your core items and you just want to slap on some extra physical penetration to help out not only you but your teammates, because this thing gives you protection shred of the physical variety. It doesn't, in addition to some decent stats on the strength and pen there. So particularly there's this one pretty meta Thanatos build going around. Thanatos has a lot of physical penetration built into his kit, flat pen from his 2. And this adds on to that extra pot shred. And then you get like a, we'll talk about Stone of Binding later down the line that reduces protections by a flat amount as well. And this item is very good when you stack it with other sources of flat penetration, because you can start dealing very close to true damage if you get enough shred on that flat penetration. So very strong item that you would get typically a little bit later in your build after you have core items finished. Love it. Sunbeam Bow. This item is an active item. First active item we've seen. So how active items work is when you buy them, you can have up to 3 active items at any given time. You'll see after I bought this item, look at this space right here. Populates down here. So I can have up to 3 of those. And the key that they bind to, the defaults are G, Q, and E in that order. And so what this item does, Sunbeam Bow, when I activate it, my basic attacks will fire out these 2 little arrows, in addition to my actual basic attack, of course. And you'll notice it takes my mana over time. And I can keep this toggled as long as I want until I run out of mana. So yeah, like a character that I'm a melee character, I can have ranged auto attacks by having this item. If I so please. Until I run out of mana. It does auto turn off, I think. Or no, it doesn't auto turn off. It keeps going until I'm out of mana. It doesn't have enough to go anymore. So yeah, let's keep using that. And I don't even have to be using the thing. Once I toggle it on, it takes my mana until I run out. So you got to toggle it on and off by pressing the button again if you no longer want the effect. And this item was like really broken when it came out. And now it's kind of lackluster. Now here are the numbers. It deals 10 plus 20% of your basic attack damage as magical damage. Typically only building this on an auto attacker, where you're just trying to kill people with a lot of basic attacks. Because you'll get the most effect out of it by having a lot of attack speed. You'll be able to get those procs out really quickly without your mana draining too fast. Like I said, it's a little bit weaker right now. Subject to change, but it was really, really overtuned not too long ago.
I'm coming for you,
that
laddie!
item's not the greatest right now. Moving on. Lernaean Bow. Where'd it go? Hopefully I said that correctly. Antoine, thank you for the follow. 40 strength, 30% attack speed. Good stats. Relatively cheap. It's another one of those active items. So if I had that, keep this Sunbeam Bow item and I get Lernaean Bow, you'll see it binds to Q by default. And this is an anti-heal item for auto attackers. That's what it is. So when I press the button, Q. Let me go on quick cast so you guys can actually see a little easier. Let me go on normal. Let me try that again. Reset the cooldown here.
Your middle
Fires out this
tower
little bow.
is under attack.
This little arrow shot. Goes through walls. Oh, I missed. Goes through walls. I missed again. Let's try the other wall. Goes through walls. Does some damage. 130% of your basic attack damage as physical damage, and afflicts them with 40% reduced healing for 4 seconds, can critically strike, and passes through walls. So, this is a decent item. We're seeing it built on Jing Wei in the most recent tournament that happened.
You have slain an enemy.
Pretty slow traveling arrow though. Not exactly the most reliable thing. I don't love this item. Can be kind of awkward too. It's like you're just fighting and then you just have to like throw this out. And there are other active item choices, but it's not a bad choice if you just really want the anti-heal. Like I was saying, in the most recent like pro tournament, it was built on one character particularly, and it wasn't built every single time that character was played. So, not the strongest item. A lot of the time, it's just better to just go full burst with different items and just try to shred through your opponents as quickly as possible, and not have that anti-heal in general. But it is an option if you Really, really want that anti-heal. And that, you know, little bit of ranged pressure as well. Where would you build it? It was getting built first item, actually, on the character Jing Wei. And I do believe the reasoning behind it is it does 130% of your basic attack damage. And Jing Wei, the character, she has an ability that gives her crit chance on her next 3 basic attacks, in addition to scaling the damage her basic attacks does. I think it's like 115% of her basic attack damage for those 3 shots that she takes. So it's kind of like extra. It's like her ability, but extra. Like, you just use her ability. You have like 2x effectiveness on that ability, basically. So I think that was the reasoning behind this item being bought on her. But basically not even seen on any other god. So yeah, not the strongest item, like I said, but in that niche scenario can be good on that one particular god, because she has an ability that literally works like the same way. So yeah, getting built first. If you were to build this on other characters, you could build it similarly to Oathsworn Spear. I'd get it after you have your core items online, because it's more of like a counter building option for most characters, right? Where it's just good for the anti-heal. Like, yeah. That one other character that I was talking about, that Jingwei character, her clear is not the best. And I do believe this thing hits any target. Oh, GG, we lost. So you can use it to clear the wave. Yeah, so it makes her clear a lot better if you buy it, right? So if you're buying on a character, you can buy it on a character whose clear is not, like, amazing. And it would kind of, like, make your clear a lot better. Alright, moving on. We've got Brawler's Ruin. This is very similar to how it is in Smite 1. It's an anti-heal item for ability casters, mainly. But it works for your basic attackers as well, because it gives a large amount of strength, a little bit of percent penetration, and your basic attacks or abilities have 40% reduced reduced healing on them for 4 seconds. So, you know, it's like this item, but without attack speed, but has more strength, has percent penetration on it. So mainly for your ability casters there, your Brawler's Ruin. You'd get this as early as you feel it's necessary in your build. You get it first item, you could get your other core items and then build this. It really is up to you and how potent you think their healing really is. One thing you can do as well is only the right side of the tree here has the anti-heal. The other side is different stats. So something I like to do sometimes is I just buy Ruinous Poison here or Ruinous Venom, and you can get a good amount of anti-heal or very little gold, and then you can buy your other core items and then finish this whenever you feel it's necessary. And that can be quite valuable as well. Just spend very little for big output. And that's Brawlers. Very, very good item. Very strong. Consider building it if you feel like they're healing too much. Bloodforge. So this is another one of those active items. Let me buy these other 2 active items we talked about. See, when I buy Bloodforge, it'll get bound by default to my E key. So now I've reached my maximum number of active items here. It won't let me buy another active item. You can tell which items are active items either by clicking on the active items filter, or you see this little lightning bolt in the bottom left there. You can see. And it won't let me buy it. Only the maximum amount of active items. So I press the E button. Gives me a shield. Pretty cool. Shield scales 10% of my max HP plus 100% of strength from items for 6 seconds. So solid shield. The item in general also gives me a good bit of strength, good bit of attack speed, low amount of lifesteal, but an okay amount. The shield gives me lifesteal. Causes lifesteal heals to apply to nearby allied gods. You know, I actually didn't know that. The shield grants 20% lifesteal and causes lifesteal heals to apply to nearby allied gods. Oh, so you can heal your teammates. That's actually really cool. I did not know that. And killing a god reduces the current cooldown of this item by 50%. So it reduces the cooldown by 70 seconds if you kill a god. If I kill this guy... Oh, it doesn't go down by 70. It goes down by 50% of whatever the cooldown of the item is. See, I thought it was 70, but yeah. If you kill a few people, you can get that to reset quite quickly. Decent item for if you're getting Dove or you're the one diving, because it can provide you that little bit of extra survivability. And if you're to build this, you could build it first item. It would be fine to build this, but you really can build this at any point in your build, because it does give decent stats for a first item buy. You know, a little bit of strength, a little bit of attack speed, and some sustain. So decent first item buy. Lifesteal isn't the most potent stat right now. It's not the most super popular. Typically, you would build this. You could build this on any strength scaling god. So you'd mostly see this built on your ADCs, your hunters, your backline ranged auto attack strength scalers. Whole mouthful there. You could build this on a bursty strength character as well that's trying to kill with abilities, and just use this as like a bailout tool, or a means of being able to push the kill a little harder and have some extra survivability. So in that case, you'd be building this item a little later if you're going to build it on like more of your bursty character, and more of your auto attack character could build it early or late, and it'll be fine, since on your auto attack character you get good stats for your auto attacks, or you just get different items first, and then you get this as a survivability tool later on. This is not the most popular item right now. I'd say it's a good item, but it's just outclassed by better items that find more value. So just not the most popular item, but it's not bad. So yeah, you could build this at any point, and it would be alright. Just a situational buy, really. Jotun's Revenge! Very similar to Jotun's Wrath from Smite 1, combined with Spear of Desolation. So, similar cost to Jotun's in Smite 1. Gives you a very large amount of cooldown rate, solid amount of strength, and a cool passive. When you get a killer assist, your non-ultimate cooldowns are reset by a second, and your ult cooldowns reset by 5. Straightforward, solid item. Strong item. Where would you build this? Typically first item or second item. Very strong if you're trying to like clear jungle camps, and you just need your abilities up more often so that you can actually clear them. And then of course, like, it's just so much cooldown rate. It's just really nice item to have as early as possible, just so you can have access to your abilities as often as possible. Of course, it's mainly for your strength scalers, seeing as it has strength, not intelligence, and really good on typically your bursty characters that are trying to get in people's faces and just spam abilities on them, like your Fenrir or your Loki, or your assassin type characters. Really solid. Titan's Bane, very similar to its Smite 1 counterpart. This is just a good tank shred item. Gives you 20% penetration and then a bunch of strength. You're going to build this item later on in your build after you finish most of your core items. So this item will happen anywhere as early as your third item. No, probably more about your fourth item. And then any point after, this item will be really strong. You get that percent penetration because it's going to be more useful the more protections the enemy has. And they'll have more protections the later on in the game you go. So other items are typically better to pick up for this guy. But this item is incredibly strong and will be purchased in your later slots. Dagger of Frenzy. One of those, another active item. Pretty cool item. When I toggle the button here, I get 5 stacks that make my next 5 basic attacks empowered. Empowers them with extra attack speed, and they deal additional damage based on my level. Pretty niche item. It used to be a lot stronger. It's a slightly weak now. You can build this at any point in your build, depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
Your middle tower is under attack.
If you're just trying to burst someone incredibly quickly, then you might want to even rush this item. But like I said, you could just get core items online and then slap this on for additional quicker kill speed. So it's a decent item, not super popular. Like I said, it's pretty niche. So when you're trying to like kill people really fast with basic attacks is when it becomes quite useful. And so if you have a character that scales up the pre-existing effect on the Dagger of Frenzy, it can be quite useful, such as Ymir, seeing as this gives 10 plus 2 per level basic attack damage. Ymir does double damage with his basic attacks when Frostbite is applied. That's his passive. For 5 seconds, that Frostbite lasts. So you can get a lot of basic attacks off on a damaged Ymir that's trying to kill people with basic attacks with Dagger of Frenzy. So yeah, pretty niche. And it refreshes the cooldown when you kill a god. You can activate this item, run around. You can activate it when you're in the base, run around, keep your 5 stacks, and then by the time you get to the wave or wherever, you have it up. So you do your quick 5 enhanced attacks and pop it again, and you have 5 more enhanced attacks. So you can get like, 10 quick ones, and if you kill them, it'll reset again. And then you just, have a bunch of really enhanced basic attacks. So can be a little silly, fun item to mess around with. Not the most consistent item, of course, and could be just better to get other items that will be more consistent and, a little bit more useful more often. Don't have to work off of a 15-second cooldown, but niche strategy. Not a bad item. Decent to build. Serrated Edge. A little bit different from how it is in Smite 1. Gives a lot of lifesteal and a solid amount of strength. Doesn't have movement speed like it did in Smite 1. This item is very solid to build any point in your build when you want to have lifesteal and a solid amount of strength. And if you're a character that is cycling through a lot of abilities, getting them on cooldown, and getting a lot of value from that Serrated Edge. People build this as early as first item. People that are, tankier, like warrior type characters, like a Mulan or a Mulan. Really good for sustaining yourself in the lane and having a good amount of strength and lifesteal. Would not recommend as much in anything outside of Conquest, as a first item at least. Simply because there are just a lot more people around that can punish you harder. And there are just better items to buy if you're playing a damage burst character, an ability burst character. But this is really good for sustenance purposes. Something crazy about Smite 1 that's different, or Smite 2 that's different about Smite 1 is you can lifesteal off of abilities hitting the wave on physical characters. Couldn't see it there. Let me actually take some damage here. If I take some damage, I have this serrated, reset my CDs, use an ability on this wave. See, I heal. So you couldn't do that in Smite 1 with physical strength scaling type characters. So serrated's quite good for that. So just a nice stat stick item, really. A lot of the time there are other better items to get. But like I said, you could buy this first item, you could buy this anywhere in your build whenever you want the sustain. Froggy's Harp. So, this item benefits both your strength and your intelligence. Gives you attack speed. And any target you hit with a basic attack will take additional damage based on your level. Magical damage. So great for your hybrid scalers.
Disappear into
your
the
hybrid
cosmos.
Basic attack scalers. Izanami. Zeus. Here's another one. Not Jingwei. Cupid. Medusa. A lot of characters can build this. It's strong enough right now that you can build this even on your strength exclusive attack damage carry scalers. So you can build this on her. You could build this on here's another strength only. There's at least one more strength only. I can't remember. But yeah, you can build this on any auto attack damage character, ADC, and it'll feel good. The numbers are just a little bit high right now, so even if you don't really make good use from the intelligence, it'll be quite valuable for you. Thank you for the follow, by the way. And so this item you'd build first item. You could build it second item, but first item is where you'd want to build this because it's very, very effective from the earliest stages. Very strong item. Possibly one of the strongest items on your ADCs. Very, very popular. Very, very strong. If you're playing an auto attack damage dealer, consider buying this item. Consider rushing this item. Really good. Chin's Blade. So this one gives strength, straight up strength, and a bit of attack speed. And your basic attacks will deal percentage damage based off the enemy's health bar. Their max health bar. And the interesting thing between this item in Smite 2 versus Smite 1 is it does more damage based on the maximum health comparison between you and the target you're hitting. So if you have 1,000 max health and they have 3,000 max health, you're going to hit a lot harder than if you have 3,000 max health and they have 1,000 max health. So a little bit less prevalent on characters that end up building tanky and you're trying to slay people quickly with the chins. A lot better on your backline auto attack damage dealers that are building a lot squishier and are trying to shred tankier characters. So if you're thinking Smite 1, this chin's hitting for 60 damage on Erlong Shens and Amaterasus and Bellonas. That'll be hitting for about 30s late game when you're playing those characters. So big nerf to tanky characters building chins. But squishier characters are profiting big time from this item. It's actually strong enough to the point where, like, if you're a tanky auto attacker, you still build it because the damage is good enough. But it is a little bit worse. So, yeah, something to think about when you buy Chin's Blade. As far as strength goes, and where you buy this item is strong enough to where you can rush it. It actually hits quite hard. 3.5% of max HP is a large number, even from an early stage. Like, even if you're playing one of those tankier characters like Bellona or Fenrir or Amaterasu, where you might go tankier later in your build, get some health, you could rush this item, and it'll be hitting like any target for like 40 damage. It's really strong early on. So you could rush this sucker. Get a first item. You can build it at any point in your build, and this item will be effective. The earlier, the better. Strangely enough. So this is probably the best auto attacker item right now, I would say. Pretty crazy. Avenging Blade. This item sucks. You do not want to build this item. So what this item does is it's like a Frostbound, kind of. Frostbound Hammer, if you know Smite 1 stuff. It slows your basic attacks, slow enemies that you hit when you're in the jungle. Slows their movement speed and their protections. Reduces their protections. Attacks up to 3 times. Good amount of strength. Good amount of health. Item is terrible. Do not build this item. Very, very niche. But just don't build it. If you're watching this video and, and it's been a couple months, maybe this item's better. So you're going to have to cross-check that. But, yeah, as it stands right now, Avenging Blade is pretty terrible and you never want to build it. And it is in some auto builds. So be careful with your auto builder. Dominance. Kind of like a copy-paste from Smite 1 to Smite 2. Dominance. If you're going to build this item, you'd build it when the enemies are super, super, super tanky. And you need your basic attacks to deal as much damage as possible. So you'd build this as early as first item and any other point in your build. Once you have enough stats, like you can build this at any point, really. First through 6th slot, it's all fine.
Your middle tower
Problem
under
is,
attack.
it's not exactly the strongest item right now just because it's overshadowed by other items. It's not too difficult to get a lot of attack speed in Smite 2 as a hunter, as a ADC. So dominance is a lot less necessary. And yep, it's just kind of like not very meta of an item. Pretty standard like ADC build. Has items like this. Let me just throw a build together. But what am I even missing? I'm missing something important. Yeah, so basically you just run out of slots pretty quickly and dominance just becomes a little irrelevant. Is the essential factor here. So, yeah, dominance a bit weaker. Who knows? Maybe it will change someday. Items split in and out of the meta. Particularly Broggy's Harp. If that item goes, then dominance might become a lot stronger from a carry POV. But yeah, right now not the strongest, but it's a good item. Solid item. Just if other items go down, then this item will go up. Executioner, staple of the attack damage carry class. Really, really good. Something very important to note about Executioner is, I guess we should talk about what that does first, huh? Strength item, good amount of attack speed, and your basic attacks give you percent penetration. Good amount too, because you can get 4 stacks on this guy. You can get 30% protection shred. 30% protection shred, not 30% physical protection shred. 30% protection shred on you, for you. Doesn't shred their prots, it gives you percent penetration. 30%, not just physical. So if you're playing a Zeus or a Soul, and you're trying to deal as much basic attack damage as possible, Executioner will give you really good value because you get the strength scaling for your basic attacks, and your strength scales 100% to your basic attack. And you get 30% protection shred, not just on the physical, to shred their physical protections, but their magical protections. And as a Zeus or a Soul, since you're dealing magical damage, Executioner can help you a lot, both on your abilities and your just general basic attack damage. So Executioner, very, 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 very potent item. Very strong, should be in pretty much like every build you got. If you're trying to go for a basic attack oriented build, you'd build this as early as second item after you get that first typically stat stick item, froggies, chins. And then you could build this at any point, though. You probably want to have this by your second or third slot if you're going for an auto attack build. A lot of value. Reaper. This is one of my favorite items. What this does, it gives you some strength and lifesteal. And if you kill someone, it gives you a stack.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Up to 6 stacks that will increase that strength / life and lifesteal effect that you get when you damage an enemy god. It's kind of buggy right now. You get stacks kind of randomly, like without even having to kill people. And I'm curious how they'll end up changing that, if they'll fix it to be exactly as the text says, or if they'll make it slightly different, like if you get a killer assist, for example, you get a stack. But if you build this, you could build it at any point. I've been building it first, but since, you know, you got to get the stacks, but you can build this at any point. I'd probably try and get it within your first 3 items if you're going to get it. But first item is very nice. I've actually been buying this on Shock and building a bit of a hybrid build, going as much damage as possible and having a lot of good lifesteal. Remember, lifesteal works as ability lifesteal now too on minion waves, so it can give you a lot of sustain. This is, I believe it's the highest lifesteal you can get out of any item, actually. 2.5 times 6 is what? For 15%, 40% lifesteal and 60 strength at max stacks on the Reaper. So really big stacks, really big stat stick if you can get the stacks on it. And so I think it's a pretty strong item. Not that strong in like a conquest setting. Definitely more of like a literally any other mode but conquest item. But this item is very good. Moving on. Hasten Fatalis. This item is a little worse in Smite 2 than it is in Smite 1. When you hit an enemy god with a basic attack, the basic attack movement penalty is reduced by 25% for 2 seconds. I'll take that filter off. So you can get up to 75% reduction on your basic attack movement penalty. And it's noticeable. It's very noticeable. The stats are not that high. The cost is quite high. 20 strength, 25% attack speed. Doesn't give you movement speed like it does in Smite 1. No pen. But it does give strength. But the effect is not as potent. So, not the strongest item right now. Definitely better to build other items, but it is niche. I found it to be semi-useful if you are a character that's auto-attacking a lot from range, and you have to go against characters that have range on you. Like, they have better range than you. So, if you're playing, like, On Her or, like, Izanami, for example, characters that don't have the greatest range, and you're playing into like a double mage backline, like a Hecate Afro, for example. The kite ability from that Fatalis can be useful, but I don't think it's useful enough in almost any scenario. If you were to buy it, you'd buy it later in your build, probably 4th item or later, after you've got your core items online. You could buy it as early as 3rd, but I'd say 4th or later. just a situational buy when you really think that additional movement speed will be useful. Pretty good for snowballing a fight where like you realize that fights are really erratic. There isn't a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Organization to them. Can be very useful like if people aren't setting up for you and you just need to, get your as many auto attacks onto targets as possible and, you don't have anyone to help you. So it can be useful in those scenarios, but typically it's just better to get a stronger like damage dealing item than it is to get Fatalis. So kind of a niche effect for certain scenarios that you'll have to feel out as you play more. But typically you aren't going it. Tekokagi. Here's a really strong item. Love this item. So this is for ability characters that are cycling through a lot of abilities that are strength scalers. Gives a good bit of strength. Costs a lot, 2,700. Decent amount of cooldown rate. But every time you use an ability that costs mana, you gain 3% movement speed and 5 cooldown rate for 10 seconds. 3 stacks. So you can get 40 strength. You can get 30 cooldown rate and 9% movement speed. Very strong item. If you can actually keep it stacked. So if you're going to get this item, you could get this as early as second item, I would say. You could get it first item, but it would be pretty hard for you to actually keep up the passive if you get it first item. So I'd recommend getting it second item or after. You can get it at really any point, but as early as possible, but not first. But I'd say for sure. So second or third slot typically. And this is a strong item on anyone that can actually utilize it well. So anyone that's cycling through those cooldowns consistently and keeping this guy stacked up will be very, very good. Typically your bursty, strength-based characters like your Susanos or your Lokis or your Thanatoses can use this quite effectively. Demon Blade. This is very similar to Smite 1. Pretty expensive, 2750. A little bit of strength. Solid amount of attack speed. Good amount of crit. And when you crit, you get more attack speed. So 35% attack speed. 25 crit chance, 35 strength. This is a solid item. You can build it as early as, I would say, second item. There's a relatively meta hunter build where you go Broggy's Harp into Demon Blade. Or you go Bracer of the Abyss into Demon Blade on something like a Zeus or Assault. And it can be quite effective to get those crits on your characters that scale their basic attacks really well with their passives. Soul. Or you could even build it as a standard hunter build, Broggy's Harp into Demon Blade. Pretty strong crit item. If you're going crit, you should probably go this item. And like I said, get it as early as second item, but you can buy it at any point after that too. The only slot where you wouldn't buy it is first item, I would say. Oh, solid item. Going crit. Crusher. Solid amount of strength, good amount of pen, 10 cooldown rate, and you get additional damage on your abilities based off of your strength. A really solid stat stick item. Would this trigger on X-Ball autos? Which one? The Tekokagi? No. I do not believe so. But we'll see. Because I think Shibalanke is he has toggle basic attacks. So toggle abilities don't work with Teko. So Pele 3 doesn't work with Teko. Don't think X-Ball 3 is any different. So probably won't. Or X-Ball 1 rather. But anyway, back to Crusher. This would work with your X-Ball 1. It's kind of... this is a really good item, Crusher. So you want to get this item when you have a good amount of base strength. So you're probably getting this item as early as 4th. So this slot. So 5th or 6th is going to be more common. It's a really good stat stick that does a lot if you have a lot of strength already. But you're going to want to get your cooldown from like Jotuns or Teko first. You're going to want to get your power or your strength from like Transcendence. You're going to want to get like Heartseeker before you get this. You're going to want to get like heavier pen like a Titan's Bane before you get this. You want to get your Brawler's Ruin for their anti-healing or for the anti-healing before you get this. So This item quite expensive, and you're going to want other items to scale it harder first. So Crusher is typically something you get later down the line, as early as 4th, but more commonly maybe like a 5th or 6th item on the Crusher here, where I would recommend it. Decent item, solid item, not overwhelmingly strong. You don't need to have it in your build, but yeah, for your strength burst characters that are trying to burst off their abilities and you're going like full damage, can be quite useful. I'd say it's most common in a build for Uller, who likes to go Transcendence, Hydras, Lament into Tekokagi, into Titan's Bane, into Heartseeker, into Crusher. Yep. If you played that Smite 1 variant of that kind of build, like on Uller, where you just go full ability burst, you just kind of skip over the Brawler's Ruin, the Brawlers, and you just go straight for just as much burst as possible. Very similar in Smite 2. Hachi would work with Teko? Yes, after you've used all your one-shots, I think, is how that would work. You wouldn't build Tekokagi on Hachiman, though. Alright, moving on. Pendulum Blade. I like this item a lot. Very expensive. How it works is it's an active item. Solid amount of strength. Good amount of cooldown rate. And when you pop it, all your abilities go down by 3 seconds. So, let me show you what that looks like real fast. Level 20, I use all my abilities. Wait. I did something bad. Use all my abilities. And then I pop this item and watch my cooldowns. Boom, insta-back. And it's 50-second cooldown on that guy. So really low. So if you're playing a character that cycles through cooldowns a lot, like, you know, your Thor, your Thanatos, your Susanoo, can be very, very useful to have this item. Biggest downside is it costs 2,800 freaking gold. Like, this would be an insane first item to have. But it's so expensive. So, I actually like this item more than I like Jotuns, believe it or not. But the fact that Jotuns cost 2450 makes me want to get Jotuns more. Because Jotuns has a little bit more cooldown rate, but this cooldown reduction is a lot more consistent than the Jotuns passive. And you can pop this off CD. Since it's on a 50-second cooldown, it's pretty low. So, I'm a big fan of Pendulum Blade. But it's not like a super meta item right now. You could build this as early as first item, but like I said, it is quite expensive. So you'd probably want to get this later in your build, maybe as early as 4th item typically. If you want to use it as an alternative to Jotuns, it's perfectly fine. Just know you're spending quite a bit more to get that. So like if you were going like Pendulum Blade, like let's say this is Uller, you skip going like Transcendence, you don't want to stack it.
Your middle
You could go something like this. And get a Pendulum Blade kind of down the line. Where is it? I lost it. We lost. Pendulum Blade, where'd you go? I feel like this is out of order from where we were before. What the heck, man? Where'd it go? Actually lost it. Oh, why is it at the top now? You could go something like this. Place the trans type of deal. It'd be really good. Just cycle through abilities, pop your Pendulum Blade. Really good if you, like, miss your Thanatos one, and you're like, oh, shoot, I gotta get out of here. Or you miss your Thor one, you're like, oh, wow, I really wish I had my Thor one back. You just pop your one. Or you use your ult, and you got some downtime, you haven't used it yet, just pop the Pendulum Blade to get your ult back a few seconds faster. Pretty solid item. So, yeah, I think pretty solid item. Haven't seen it built too often. Probably because of the price point. If this was like 2,700 maybe. Like, if they lowered the cost of this and reduced the strength, wouldn't hate it. Or if they just lowered the cost of it, honestly. I think they could lower this down to maybe 2,700 and it would still be fine. Heck, maybe 2,650 is even okay. But solid item for your guys that are trying to reset their cooldowns that are typically used to burst. Like your Thanatos, your assassin guys. Yeah, one tap. It's a very cool item. Where's Gaia? Ah, yes. Heartseeker. Moving on. This is very similar to how it works in Smite 1. Deals additional damage to the enemy. Percentage of the target's max HP based on how much strength you have. Good amount of strength. Good amount of mana regen. Solid pen. If you are building a burst build, an ability burst build, and you're a strength scaler, you have to have this in your build. You have to. It's going to do 100 plus damage, and it just scales way too well. You have to have this item in your build. You're going to buy it a little bit later than other items. It's $28.50, quite expensive, and it scales with your strength. So you're going to want as much strength as possible before you get it. So you might get like a Transcendence, a Hydra's, a Titan's Bane, and then a Heartseeker. That is probably where you'd buy it, 4th or later. You need a good base of strength to make it really good, but even with just a little bit of strength, it can go a long way. And with the addition of the 3K pots being stackable, you can even be a little, tankier with your build and still make good use of the Heartseeker once you start stacking on those 3Ks. It'll make it even more useful, right? Because this is like an infinitely scaling Heartseeker. It's not capped like it is in Smite 1 at a percentage of your strength or a percentage of their HP. This will keep going up and up and up and up and up as your strength gets higher. So the more strength, the better. And it is an incredibly strong item. Top tier item, Heartseeker. Like I said, you got to have it if you're going a strength burst build with your abilities. W item. Deathbringer. This is kind of a necessary item if you're going to go crit. Crit is not the most popular thing right now, at least for your strength scalers, your physical damage dealing strength scalers. But if you're going crit, Deathbringer is similar to Smite 1. It's quite useful for your crit build. We saw it in the most recent tournament from a guy that played Zeus. Went Bracer of the Abyss, which scales your basic attack damage. He went like Executioner. He went Demon Blade. He went Shifter Shield. He went Deathbringer. I forgot the other item. But these items work really well together because this scales up your... We'll talk about that later. But it scales up your basic attack. This one shreds for your basic attacks. This is great crit. And this is even more crit. And as a Zeus, you probably want some protection. So that helps the shifters, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But Deathbringer, similar to as it was in Smite 1, is just a item that's really good for people that are trying to build crit. Pretty much always want it if you're building crit, is the bottom line there on the Deathbringer. So yeah. If you're going to buy it, you'd buy it late in your build. So this is a 5th or 6th item slot. Very expensive. Very good when you have a lot of crit. That's Deathbringer. Why do my items keep getting all out of order? Am I tripping? What did I do? Bro. We need to talk about like these magical damage or these intelligence items now, but they're all out of order, man. Heck. We're back in order? I think we are. Alright, so next up, Musashi's Dual Swords. 40 strength and a good amount of crit. And when you crit, you gain movement speed. If you're going to build this, you'd build it after... You could build this as your first crit item. Though, because of the attack speed on Demon Blade, I would say you build it after Demon Blade. Sometime after Demon Blade. And so you'd end up getting this maybe 4th or later, similar to Deathbringer. I think you'd only really build this item if you're going triple crit. If you're going this, this, and this. And I think this is lowest priority. So it typically in my book would just not make the crit build. So I just wouldn't build it. It's the most expensive of the crit items. And I think it's the least impactful. So it kind of, loses the slot for me. But if you were to build this, like I said, it's probably 5th or 6th. 4th, I think I said 4th to 5th, 6th, but more likely 5th or 6th since you probably want Demon Blade or Deathbringer. You could have it over Deathbringer, but Deathbringer's too good, man, in a crit build. So I just personally wouldn't even build this. But if you are going to build it, Build it with triple crit. Build it 5th or 6th. It's all right. Avatar's Parashu. Active item. Fat amount of strength. Costs 3,700. Makes you big. 120-second cooldown, and you become displacement immune. In Smite 2, displacement immunity immunes you to stuff like Ares ult. Of course, this will immune you to Sobek pluck. Anything that'll make your character like move away from the location where you're already at, except for grabs. Mulan grapple will still get you. If Sylvanas was in the game, his 3 would still get you. Jing Chen would still do the spin cycle, but not throw you. So very situational item, Avatar's Parashu. That just gives a lot of strength and costs a lot of money. The shop just sucks. Pain. I did, Ninja, I did. Tremble immune? No. Tremble is not a displacement CC. Odysseus' bow. This item is better than it is in Smite 1. More attack speed, costs a little bit more, but does a good amount of damage. And in Smite 2, all stats are uncapped. So you can have, like 4 attack speed, and your Odysseus bow will be proccing like a madman. So in a shred build, an auto attack shred build, Odysseus bow is pretty much necessary. And you would get it as early as 4th item. You get because you want to get all your base stuff online. Your Exy, your Chins, maybe a lifesteal item if you wanted that, maybe a Broggies, maybe a, any other like core item, and you'd get Odysseus 4th. Maybe a Titan's Bane even in 1st. But yeah, this is a staple in an auto attack shred build.
The jungle buff.
Uday boy.
I am here.
I am here. Thank you very much for the 4 months, man. Welcome back. You caught us at the right time. We're going through all these items, explaining them all, and when you build them and how strong they are. Odysseus bow is the one we're talking about. Very, very strong item. Like I said, if you're going a shred auto attack build, you want this in your build. So if you're building a pretty standard hunter build where you go like Broggy's Tarp, Chins, Exy, you could get Oboe next, or you could get Titan's Bane next. You get the other one last, and then you have another slot to fill whatever you want. Boom! Odysseus bow, very strong. Just get your core items first, slap it on, having a great day. Book of Thoth. Very similar to how it is in Smite 1. Just stack it up, get a bunch of intelligence. You build this as early as possible, 1st item. It's not the strongest item currently, just because there are other options, which we're going to talk about. But this is solid if you're playing like a Culkin still. Of course, you'd want to go Book of Thoth. But as a general mage, intelligence scaler that's looking to burst with abilities, it's going to be your highest intelligence item that you can get, I do believe. Or, if not 1st, 2nd. Behind like Dreamer's Idol, which is just Avatar's Parashu, but intelligence. And it's not the preferred item. There are just a lot of other items that are kind of outscaling it right now. Or that are just a little better, feel a little better. So you won't see a lot of Book of Thoths unless it's Kukulkan. So yeah, that's Book of Thoth. It's a decent item. You could definitely build it. And yeah, if you build it first. Eros' bow. This is a active item that allows you to mark a teammate. Let me spawn a teammate in here. Spawn God bot. That is not a teammate. Spawn Godbot. Be on my team. And I mark him by clicking my active item button G. And anytime I hit this guy, or hit an enemy, I can hit a minion, I can hit a buff camp, I can hit anything. I can hit a tower, I can hit a titan. This lasts for 10 seconds. It's like a Hou Yi 2, but it's on your teammate. And anytime you hit something with a basic attack, you'll heal the guy who's marked. So, I don't know if I can get him to lose HP in any way without dying. But, yeah, you're just gonna have to trust me. You mark him, you go hit an enemy, he heals. If you're gonna build this, you would build it a little bit later in your build after you have core stats, and you would build it typically on a character that you're building a little bit more tanky on, with a little bit more health on. So a Bologna, that's going more auto attack centric, and a Amaterasu. Or you could do like support Cupid. You may notice Eros's bow, that's just Cupid's Roman name, Eros. You could do support Cupid, and you could build this. It is a little annoying having to like turn to a teammate and mark them. That's the only thing that's kind of off-putting about this item. So like if I'm a Bologna and I'm like diving in, going crazy, and then I have to like, oh, my teammate's in the back, let me mark him, and then go back to doing it, like, it's kind of annoying. But it is a solid item, and it is quite a significant heal. So in my opinion, it's a pretty solid item. I would definitely consider building this on Alma, on Bologna, on support Cupid. Can heal your teammate quite a bit. Teammates. And mark one guy at a time for 10 seconds. Pretty solid. Divine Ruin. Staple item if you want anti-heal for an intelligence scaler that's using a lot of abilities. You'd build this as early as first item if they have an insane amount of healing. And that would be typically outside of Conquest, since they're not going to be grouped up that much to make your Divine Ruin that crazy. Like, you typically just want to get better or other items to scale your damage first, and then get this like second or third. But you probably want to get this first, second, or third if you are going to buy it. You can buy it at any point. But yeah, somewhere one first, second, or third is definitely where you'd buy Divine. Because if you're going to buy it later on, if you think it's buying 4th, 5th, or 6th, then you probably don't even need it. If you don't think the healing is that impactful. So, yeah. If you think you need it, you get it early. If you don't, just don't get it. Moving on, Chronos Pendant. This item is actually a little better in Smite 2, I would say. It was a bit low intelligence, but a lot of cooldown rate. And if you know the difference between cooldown rate and cooldown reduction, cooldown rate is a little bit less reduction for your ability cooldowns. So the Chronos Pendant passive comes a little bit more into play with that 1 second reduction every 10 seconds. The only problem is it only gives 40 intelligence. So it's like exclusively the cast abilities. If you're going to get this, you could get it at any position in your build, really. I would recommend it later in your build than earlier, unless you're playing a character that is not even really trying to deal that much damage. You're just trying to spam CDs. So you'd get this on like Aphrodite, like Baron, if you're playing like a tankier version in particular. Stack it up with stuff like World Stone, Gem of Focus. It's like really spam CDs. But if you're building like a burst mage build, not exactly that good. Because it's just better to have more burst. You can get decent CD rate from other items that we'll see in the future here, since we're talking about kind of more intelligence items right now. But Chronos Pendant is alright. It's alright. You might get it like 5th or 6th if you really just want to spam cooldowns, but like I said, it's just better to have other items a lot of the time. So unless you're just playing like ult spam Afro or 2 spam Baron Somni, like it's just not really worth to get almost in any situation. Besides those, Obsidian Shard, this is still a very staple percent penetration item for your intelligence based characters. Just really solid 20% pen. Not a lot of other items that do that. In fact, it's just Obsidian Shard and another item we'll get to in a mere moment here. 1 second, I gotta turn on the light. There we go. Beautiful. But Obsidian Shard, you're gonna be getting probably 4th slot or later, because you want to get your base stats online first. You want to get your soul gems and your gem of focuses and your divine ruins, and just get all your good feeling items quickly. That'll give you nice stats for the early to mid game, and that Obsidian Shard will be really nice as you start transitioning into the later stages of the game where you really want to have that extra penetration to explode those tanks. That is what it's used for, killing those tanks. Very strong item. Really good in those intelligence ability scalar builds. Spear of Deso. Pretty similar to Smite 1. 90 intelligence, 5% pen, and it gives you some CD resets when you get a killer assist. You would build this item as early as possible, first or second typically. The problem is it's not very good. Other items are just better. That is as simple as it gets, so you're just not really building this guy. Polynomicon is a lot better in Smite 2 than it is in Smite 1 because you get the extra basic attack damage after casting an ability on no cooldown. So you can use your Cuckoo 1, hit a poly, use your Cuckoo 2, hit a poly, you use your Cuckoo 3, hit a poly, use your Cuckoo 4, hit a poly. A lot of polys. Really good on like Hades and whatnot. The earlier you get this, I was about to say the earlier the better, but you're going to want to have a little bit of base stats going for you before you get this as early as like second item, I would say. Probably just not first item. But you can buy this at kind of any point on any character that's looking to cycle through those abilities and weave in basic attacks in. And typically is an intelligence scaler is when you'd want to do this. So Hades or Aladdin, the character I'm playing right now, uses this Polynomicon really well because he can combo his abilities so well with it. Just do this, basic attack, oh, the guy died. And then use your next ability and weave a lot of abilities and auto attacks in.
Double kill.
It'd be really good if you're scaling highly off of intelligence and dropping those basic attacks in. So, yep, as early as second, but the more intelligence you have, the better. So unless you abuse it super easily, you probably want to get other items before you buy it. Soul Gem, on the other hand, similar to Smite 1. So how this works is you stack it up by hitting things with your abilities, and once you get 3 stacks, when you hit a god, it'll deal a little bit of extra damage, and it'll heal you and teammates that are near you. Gives 75 intelligence, 15% lifesteal, 10 cooldown rate. A lot of great stats for the early game and scales well into the late game. This is an item that you're going to want to build as early as possible. It might be the most popular mage item in the game right now. I would not be surprised. You rush this thing. It is solid. Really great early game stats. 2,500, decently affordable price. And it just is like just so strong. It's just really, really good, this Soul Gem right now. So like I said, you get it first item. One of the strongest items in the game for mages or for just intelligence ability users. Really good. Get Soul Gem every game. Bloodbound Book. This is similar to Bloodforge. The strength. Bloodforge is strength and Bloodbound Book is intelligence. This thing gives you a shield when you pop it as an active item based on your intelligence. 140-second cooldown. Killing a god reduces it by 50% of the current cooldown. So if I kill someone, this would go down by 65 seconds from 130. But not the strongest item. You'd probably build it. You could build it first. You can build this item at any point, really. But the more intelligence you have, the more it's going to do. So, you know, the only reason you'd buy it first is because it's got, like, decent stats for the early game, similar to Soul Gem. This doesn't give cooldown rate. It gives health instead, right? So, it would be a decent first item on your, you know, you're like a Anubis or whatever, but kind of low intelligence, right? It's 25 less than Soul Gem. That's the big thing about Soul Gem is it's so much intelligence. It's very solid first item versus this, which is a lot lower and more of a, you know, a survivability item, but ends up being just worse than other items a lot of the time. If you're playing like an Anubis, it can be useful. It gives, you know, that lifesteal. Anubis really loves that lifesteal. And yeah, you can get this at any point in your build, really. Just not the strongest item, so they're just better choices usually. Bracer of the Abyss. Intelligence item that helps your basic attacks. 30% attack speed, a whole lot. And if you hit an enemy god or jungle boss with an ability or basic attack, you gain 10 basic attack damage for 10 seconds up to 6 times. You'd get this as early as possible, I would say. First item or second item. Works really well with Broggy's Harp. Gives intelligence, scales well for your auto attack hybrid scalers, or your auto attack just mainly intelligence guys. Broggy's Harp, similar. So works really well with that item. And works particularly well for a character like Zeus or Soul. Since Zeus and Soul deal additional basic attack damage with their passives. And Bracer of the Abyss gives you flat basic attack damage. It stacks really well for Zeus or Soul. So very much considering doing that on them. And then you put that on top of like a crit item. And then all of a sudden your basic attacks are hitting for like 400. They're hitting up real quick. They're ramping up hard. So a lot of great scaling with a Zeus or a Soul on a Bracer of the Abyss. Solid item. Not the most popular outside of like a Zeus or a Soul, since it's an intelligence item and most of your auto attackers are going to be looking to build as much strength as possible and deal physical damage. So the Bracer of the Abyss isn't that attractive for them. But for your magical damage dealers that scale with auto attack well, Soul and Zeus can use this quite well. So, solid item. Build it first if you're going to play those characters, or second. You're going Broggy's Harp too. Gem of Focus. This is like Tekokagi, but for mages. For intelligence scalers. Intelligence, cooldown rate, and when you use an ability, you gain 15 intelligence. That's a lot. And 3% movement speed for 10 seconds. 3 stacks. So you can get 95. Is that number correct? 85. You can get 85 intelligence, 15 CD rate, 9% movement speed. 85. That is a lot of intelligence. So this is another one of the strongest mage items in the game. The typical mage build will go Soul Gem and Gem of Focus as early as possible, and then maybe you like have a Divine Ruin in there if you need it. But the 1-2 punch from Soul Gem, Gem of Focus is quite strong. Probably one of, if not the strongest mage items in the game. Similar to Soul Gem. It's just so good. Even on characters that don't cycle through the abilities as easily, like maybe like a Zeus, where you're not like just like spamming your abilities super hard. Like, it is worth spamming your abilities a little bit just to keep the Gem of Focus up, because the item is so strong. Like, the movement speed is crazy. It just kind of like replaced Doom Orb, Smite 1 item. Doom Orb was very popular in Smite 1 towards the end. So Gem of Focus is kind of just a replacement for Doom Orb. And Doom Orb actually is in here. You'll see it. We'll go over it later. But Gem of Focus, just giving the cooldown rate in addition to just an insane amount of intelligence and the movement speed, is just a little bit too good. So, yeah. Fairly strong item. You want to build this as early as possible. Typically as early as second item. First item can be a little tough. It's harder for you to keep up casting all those abilities and keeping it stacked, because it really doesn't get value until you got those stacks. So you just want to be able to have enough cooldown rate from something like a Soul Gem.
Your middle tower is under attack.
Moving on, Cosmic Horror. Decent amount of intelligence, good mana regen. This is a solid item. If you have more than 275 intelligence, you gain 10 cooldown rate. So this is a great item once you have enough to help the passive, and it's great for mana sustain because all that mana regen and the max mana. It used to be a lot better because it had a lot more intelligence. But this item is still solid for decent cooldown rate if you're really just trying to spam your abilities and you already have a decent amount of intelligence. Can be good. So as long as you have enough intelligence to make this thing work, solid to pick up. So where you'd build it is you'd build it probably as early as 4th item, maybe even 3rd, depending on how much intelligence you have. But you really want to get that passive to make this item worth. Unfortunately, there are just typically just a little bit better items in the game right now. Like this, like I said, has been nerfed a good bit, Cosmic Horror. So there are just other options that'll be a little better typically, that'll outperform. So unless you're just really trying to lean into that cooldown rate, I would not recommend going Cosmic Horror, because between the Soul Gem and the Gem of Focus and most intelligence scalers go Sands of Time, like you just have so much cooldown rate already. And once you reach like a decent amount of cooldown rate, it doesn't really help you very much to get more. That's just the nature of cooldown rate versus cooldown reduction. Is once you have a, like, I'd say like 40 cooldown rate, like getting more doesn't feel very strong. So like I said, just better to get other options more often than not. But if you really are just trying to spam those abilities, Baron Somni, Aphrodite's, feel free to get that Cosmic Horror. Demonic Grip. Next item. 55 intelligence, 25% attack speed. Similar to Executioner, but it's intelligence, of course. So instead of strength, it's intelligence. Typically, you would buy this in the same slot where you would buy Executioner. So, as early as second. And it grants you that same piercing effect for 4 seconds. It does not stack with Executioner. And this is universal penetration. So 30% penetration both for your physical and magical damage dealers. The difference is this gives you intelligence, this gives you strength. If you're buying one of these items, you're going for auto attack damage, and the basic attack formula is the damage is calculated based off 100% of your strength plus 20% of your intelligence plus 100% of your basic attack scale, or your basic attack damage, which is a number that is static depending on your character, goes up per level. So 100% strength, 20% intelligence. You're going to scale a lot harder on your basic attacks with strength than you are with intelligence. And since penetration is universal here, I would much rather have the high strength item on my auto attack shred character than the intelligence on my auto attack shred character, because I'm going to get more damage on my basic attacks from having strength than I am from intelligence. Because, 100% of my basic attack damage from my strength, 20% from my intelligence. I'm getting 40 extra damage on my basic attack from this, versus this, I'm getting, 55 times 0.2 is 111. I'm going to get 11 extra damage versus 40 on my basic attack. I'm getting 5% extra attack speed, but I would much rather have this if I'm a magical character or a physical damage dealing character. So Demonic Grip is kind of just not Executioner. So you don't get it. All right, Typhon's Fang. Straight stat stick, very simple item. 50 intelligence, 35% lifesteal, 2,700 gold. You may notice that these magical lifesteal items are kind of low in the intelligence department. Because they are. So it's not that great. Unfortunately, if you are to get this item, you'd get it a little bit later in your build, since it's not that high of an intelligence item, so it's not going to feel that great early. And so you're kind of exclusively buying it for the lifesteal. And a lot of the time it's just, or pretty much all of the time, it's just better to have more damage. So this item is not that great. You could just get on your, your Anubises. You just have Bloodbound Book, Typhon's Fang type of deal. You'd buy this later in your build. Expensive, and it's low intelligence. Like I said, exclusively for lifesteal. So you're getting this like 4th item or later. But just between you and me, with the stats it has right now, don't build it. Necronomicon. This is a high risk, high reward item. 50 intelligence, 10% pen. Getting kills or assists will give you 50 more intelligence, but remove 10 of your physical prots and 10 of your magical prots. Up to 3 stacks. Stacks go away on death. So if you get max stacks here, you have 200 intelligence. But you also have minus 30 physical, minus 30 magical protections. And then, of course, you have the 10% pen. So a pretty risky item, and you're going to be building it on a squishy character typically, because you just want to maximize how much damage you're dealing. You build this as early as you want. You could build it first item. You could build it second item. You could build it third item. Heck, you could build it 5th or 6th item if you really feel like there's just no pressure on you and you want as much intelligence as possible. This is going to be the best way to get it. 1 second. Man, I hate when you have to sneeze and then you go to sneeze and you don't sneeze. It's the worst. But yeah, 200 intelligence is insane, but the protection reduction is pretty tough. So you got to be careful with this guy. If people see you build this, they might just start focusing you. And I have very much noticed how much extra damage I deal when people buy this thing. So be careful with it, but it is a strong item. And if you can avoid death, you will be profiting. Also, it stacks pretty quick. 3 kills or assists happens pretty fast depending on, the game.
Your middle tower is under attack.
But pretty good item. Definitely consider trying it out. Totem of Death. So this is like Executioner or Demonic Grip, but what? Abilities. So it gives you that piercing effect, giving you the percent pen when you hit abilities. Tick abilities, I do believe stacks it quicker. So if you hit like an Agni ability and you have Agni passive, you get the extra ticks of damage will give you stacks on your Totem of Death. Stack it really quick. Biggest benefit of this is it has cooldown rate. So people who are actually playing characters that don't stack it like super fast, like Zeus or like Hecate, and going Totem of Death, who don't stack this like insanely quickly, but they were still building it. And the only reason I could think of is because it got good cooldown rate. Also, it is important to note that the piercing effect that you get stacks with Obshard. But you can't stack piercing effect. See, Executioner, Demonic Grip, and Totem of Death all have piercing effect. You can't get multiple items with piercing effect to stack more than 4 times. So people were going like this and just having maximum pen and nice cooldown rate. See a lot of cooldown rate from these items. So strong item, great on your mage ability spammers. You're going to build it, you'd build it a little bit later into your build, around this 3rd or 4th slot, just to get the maximum pen, or later if you don't feel like you need that much pen that early. But very good items. World Stone. Good mana regen, okay intelligence, good cooldown rate. Reduces your ultimate cooldown by 20%. This is a little bit more valuable than cooldown rate, the passive here, because it acts like cooldown reduction, I do believe. And it doesn't apply it until after you use your ult. So I'm at 58.06. If I use my ult, 46. So see, it applied that 20% cooldown reduction after the fact. And it was 12 seconds. If I had 20 more cooldown rate, we would not get 12 seconds off that ult. We might get 5. Because cooldown rate gets worse as you build more. But this is very good for your ult spammers. So if you're playing full burst Neath, really good. Solid item. You typically get it maybe as early as 3rd. Spam like your Neath ult, but you're going to want a little bit of intelligence to really make those extra ults worth. You could get it even 2nd, I suppose. But right now, Soul Gem and Gem of Focus are just so good, you don't really need that bad. I'd say it's more of like a Agni item or like a Neath item to just really spam those ults. So you would get it maybe like here on those characters. And then you just finish up with just a lot of pen and a rod. And just deal just a ton of damage a ton of the time. Your ults or your cooldowns would be very low. And you just have like every stat you need. So, strong item. The World Stone, as long as you are an ult abuser. But yeah, wouldn't get it on a lot of different characters. Like, I don't think I'd get it on Zeus or Hecate, because, like, although their ults are good, like, they're not as much uptime as an Agni. And they're not as important as having the Neath ult up as often as possible. So, yeah. Doom Orb. Good item. Percent pen. Good amount of intelligence. Good mana regen. Basically infinite mana. You build this item as early as possible. It's just got solid early game stats. The intelligence, the mana regen, the pen. But it just is outshined by these other more meta items that I have all built right here. So, good item though. Like, if you are not a great Gem of Focus user, you might consider building a Doom Orb. For example, this Aladdin guy that I'm playing right now, like, typically I don't want to just be using my abilities all the time to move around the map. I'd rather have them to actually deal damage to things. Versus, like, if I was playing Janice, who's not in the game right now, and I'm just spamming my 3 as I run around, like, the Gem of Focus gets a lot more value on him. Or, like, I'm playing Agni, I don't know if I'm going to be using my Flame Wave to maintain my Gem of Focus stacks. So, like, you know, might be more useful to get a Doom Orb, but Gem of Focus is just so overtuned right now that Doom Orb just doesn't really have that much of a place, I would say. And it's just better to have the Gem of Focus, even if you only have the uptime on the stacks when you're in an actual fight. So yeah, Doom Orb's just a little outscaled right now. But it's a good item. Staff of Mirrodin, also another really good item. Really fun item. Active item. Makes it so the next ability you use gets an instant cooldown refund and you can use it again. That was not the best ability to use it with. Let me show you again. See, I'm going to use my jump ability. Oh, I forgot to pop my mirror in. We're going to use my jump ability. Your next non-ultimate ability. This doesn't work for ult, by the way. So really cool effect. Really awesome, cool effect. Useful very much so on a character that is getting a lot of burst from one ability. So, like, you can double Zeus Detonate, for example. Really powerful. Or double Agni Dash, or just double anything. Double any non-ult ability. Really, really nice effect. Can be very fun and very good. Really great for snowballing fights. I would consider building this item maybe as... You could even build this first item, but realistically, you probably want to get it maybe like third item or later. Just to get maximum value from your abilities actually being able to do a lot with more items completed. So you get more use out of having 2 of those uses. This item will probably be stronger in the future as more gods come out that can abuse the passive even better. Or the active effect even better. But yeah, good item. Long cooldown. Soul Reaver. Basically the same as it is in Smite 1. When you hit an ability on somebody, you'll deal percentage of their HP as bonus damage. It's kind of weak right now, just the numbers. But this item, if the numbers are adjusted, very good. But it's a low intelligence item that costs 3,000 gold. And the damage it does is just worse than other just burst-oriented mage items. So, not amazing. If you're going to buy this item, you get it 4th, 5th, or 6th. Later in the build, for sure. And like I said, just not that strong. So you're just not buying it, really, unless you're playing a tankier character. Like, Shock is pretty good with this item when he's building tanky, since it doesn't scale based off your power, unlike Heartseeker, right? Heartseeker scales based off your strength. This is not scale based off your intelligence. It's just straight up their current HP. So, the numbers are just not high enough to make it that valuable in Smite 2 right now. So, I just avoid it. But if you're watching this video and it's been like 2 or 3 months, item might be really good. So, check up on that. Yeah. 4th to 6th would be good if the numbers are higher than what they are right now. Trans Book of Thoughtful, power is the only way. Or is the way. It's good. Axel, for sure. Rod it to Hootie. Now, here's an item you want every single Burst Mage build. Because look at that passive. Gain additional intelligence equal to 20% of your intelligence from items. My intelligence here is 490. Buy this item. 672. 490 to 672? Holy moly, I just gained 180. 182. That is a lot of intelligence, man. So this is basically like, you have to buy this. The later you buy it, the more impact it'll have, since you'll have more intelligence built. You're going to be building this, of course, on your intelligence scalers that are looking to burst people with their abilities. Since you'll just get more value from that passive, the more intelligence you have built. And it's just like a very, 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 very good item. Top tier. Should be in every single one of your intelligence scalar burst builds. 4th, 5th, or 6th, typically, since you need a little bit of intelligence built to make it useful. But very strong. Very strong. Dreamer's Idol. Luxury item, similar to Avatar's Parashu. 3,700 you see there. Gives you that active effect. Makes you go big. Displacement immunity. And gives you increased intelligence. Can be a very strong combo if you go with Rod. But it's a little bit expensive. And can be a little bit overkill, I would say. So a lot of the time you just don't really even need it. But it can be useful just to get the most intelligence possible. If you really are just looking for that, 1,000 damage use chain lightning every time it hits, then Dreamer's Idol is the way to go. But it's just so luxury. It just costs so much. You want to get this 6th item. You never buy it really before that point. It's just too expensive. And like Rod is just better to get, cheaper, and has similar effects. So, and then you've got other items being so good. So it's kind of like falls out of favor. But it's a decent item. If you want to deal the most damage possible, you do want it in your build. Similar to Book of Thoth. But it's just, you know, not as consistent and as easy to use as like this kind of like standard build I have built up here. So you're just not getting it that often, I would say. What's up, Kai? And that'll do it for our offensive items. We're almost at the 2-hour mark. We're spending a lot of time talking about these suckers. Fortunately, we've only got a couple more sections to go here, and that was the biggest section. So we got to talk about defensive items, and we got to talk about hybrid items. We're not going to talk about these T2s and T1s, but we will 100% be talking about the rest of these. Thoughts on Zoom Orb? My thoughts were that it's a good item, but other items are better. Ian. It's just like the Soul Gem Gem of Focus core is just a little too strong in comparison, and like the movement speed from the Gem of Focus, that's what it's really measuring up against, is Gem of Focus. And Doom Orb has similar intelligence. A little bit more intelligence, I suppose, right? What is this? 95 intelligence versus 85 from Gem of Focus. I think the cooldown rate just puts Gem of Focus over the top. And like you can go overkill on movement speed. So it's just Gem of Focus is better, really. The pen attracts you? Yeah. It is good pen. For sure. I just think it's just a good item that if other items were worse, it would be meta. But I think it's just like slightly below the more meta items, the stronger items. Just very, very slightly. All right, moving on. Defensive items here. Ruinous Ankh. 40 of each prot, 40% anti-heal. In a large radius around you, 8.8 meters. 8.8 is out here. So large area around you. That was not a good circle. This is the best item for your tankier characters to counter healing. As I said earlier, if you're trying to buy anti-heal, but you don't want to like finish the item yet, you can always just go for the T1 or T2. Very low cost for 30% or 20% anti-heal. Only 600 or 300 gold, depending on how much you want to allocate there. Because this doesn't give any health, so it can be tough if you want to get anti-heal early. Don't really want to rush a full 2100 item and have no HP in a tank build a lot of the time, because health is just going to be the best way to stay alive early on as a tank. So you might consider getting these two, finishing a different item, maybe finishing 1 or 2 items and then getting this. But really strong item. I'd probably finish it as early as 2nd item, but more than likely get it like 3rd, maybe even 4th. But just really, really strong. Is this going on YouTube? Yes. And just, yeah, it's just your one-stop shop for anti-heal as a tank. And if you want anti-heal, this is where you go as a tank. Really strong item. Yogi's Necklace. Bunch of health, bunch of mana, bunch of regen. Cheap. Boom. Described Yogis. You want to get this as early as possible. First item is solid. Strength-wise, this item is okay. I think other items are better. Never really have liked items like this because just like health and mana and nothing else, it's just kind of like a QOL item. It feels good, but are you going to get more from other items? Yeah. You're just going to get more from like more aggressive effects or more solid defensive effects on different items. So I personally just wouldn't build it. But as far as just like feeling nice, it's your, you know, your first few games and you just want an item that is going to keep you alive and allow you to focus on other things, like it's fine to get. It's not a bad item by any means. I just think other items are better. Gauntlet of Thebes. Now here's an item that got to glow down in Smite 2 from Smite 1. So Smite 1, like every tank is buying Gauntlet of Thebes. If you're playing a Guardian, you're buying Gauntlet of Thebes in Smite 1. Smite 2, if you're buying Gauntlet of Thebes, you might be trolling. This thing gives you 50 of each protection at max dex, 150 mana, 150 health, 2200, pretty cheap, cheaper than Smite 1. But it's not an active item. And active items are the strongest items you can get
Titan is under attack.
as a tank. If you're building tank. So Gauntlet of Thebes, kind of out of the meta right now. If you're going to build this, you'd build it in your first or second slot. But like I said, would not recommend. Because as we'll see, the active items that you can get as a tank are very strong. And kind of kick Gauntlet of Thebes away from ever wanting it. Also, it's a burst meta. Tanks are not tanky late game. And this is just a straight protection item. It's not going to help you that much when the damage dealers are hitting you incredibly hard, regardless of what you try to do. Spectral Armor. Fizz Prot, health. Any enemy within a large radius of you loses 20% attack speed and crit chance. Good item. Pretty good. If you're going to build this, you can build this as early as you want. As early as it feels feasible to you. So, probably as early as second item, because you probably want to get like a damage item first. Or something that's going to provide you more offensive pressure. But this is great for survivability. Once again, the difference, or the thing is, like, it's a little bit better to build for just not even getting hit than it is for, like, weakening them or making yourself really tanky right now. But this is a strong effect on this item. So this item has a lot of potential if the meta is a little different, because the effect is quite strong. You'll definitely feel this as a carry playing into this item. The earlier it's built, the more you're going to feel it. Like, even without the crit chance being a factor, like if you're going against a full shred ADC, like, they'll feel this. Well, like I said, they're just better options usually. So not the greatest item, but it is a good item. Like, if you really are just like, if you're playing against like some guys that are just trolling and they're playing full physical, like, this item becomes a lot stronger. They're playing full physical damage dealers, you're gonna get a lot of value from Spectral. But it's a completely defensive item is the thing. And completely defensive items lose a bit of value with the way Smite 2 is played right now, I would say. You want to have a defensive item that can let you be aggressive in some way, typically. So similar to the Thebes problem. Eye of Providence. Active item. Allows you to place a ward. A sentry ward. Gain an additional 50 gold and destroying a ward that provides gold, which is a cool passive. So if I kill something that's spotted by this ward, I'll get 100 gold instead of 50. Really cool. Gives me protections of both and some max health. So decent item to rush first, you would think. And that passive, the active effect is quite strong, right? Being able to place a sentry ward every minute that lasts for 2 minutes. Like, I'm going to have multiple of these at once. I wonder how many it lets me put down. Oh, you can only have 2 at a time. Alright, cool. So, you would build this as early as possible. You could build it at any point, really. But since it gives protections of both and max health, you could build this first item, and it would help you a lot with controlling space. It's not a very popular item right now, and the reason is you can only have 3 active items at a time, and as we'll find out, there are a lot of strong active items. So, this is kind of like on the list of active items, if we go from like weakest to strongest, there are like the strongest ones, and there are a bunch of strongest ones, and then Eye of Providence is just like a bit below that. And so it's not built very often, but it is a good item. Just other items are better. That's the bottom line. Genji's Guard, similar as it is to Smite 1. The problem is it's got a 45-second cooldown. Good magical protections, good mana regen, got a little bit of cooldown rate. And if you get hit by magical damage, all your CDs go down by 3 seconds. Very strong effect. Can only occur once every 45 seconds. If you were to build this, you would build it as early as first item if you're against a lot of magical damage dealers. But you really could get it at any point, whenever you feel it's comfortable to slide into. It falls into a similar category as the past few items we've discussed, in terms of strength, where it's just the other items are better. So, although it's a strong item, it's just not as strong as some of the other choices. So, yeah. Genji's Guard just loses a bit of value there. Berserker Shield. This is not only a physical protection item anymore.
Under attack.
This protection is both physical and magical. A little bit of regen, good attack speed. It's going to be more for your guys that are trying to get off a lot of basic attacks, of course. And the passive effect is when you're below 60% health, you get an 8-second buff that gives you 30 additional protections. So you get 50 of each protection once the passive procs here. And 15% attack speed. So with the passive, this is a 50 of each prot, 5 regen, 40% attack speed item. That's really good. 2,300 gold, too. Only thing is it gives you no health. Just health regen. So, strong item that you're going to build on your auto attackers. Ymir can build this well. Amaterasu and Bologna can build this well. And the only thing you're going to be lacking is that health, right? And I've felt that. So you can build this as early as first item. Build it at any point in your build just to have a lot of attacks, or a lot of attack speed and a lot of protections. Solid item. Would recommend. Gladiator Shield. This item is a bit stronger in Smite 2 than it was in Smite 1, surprisingly enough, because the effect is going to work on minions. And how it works is gives you some physical protection, some max health, some CD, and enemies hit by your abilities take 15 plus 25% of your item protections as bonus physical damage. Like I said, it works on minions. So it helps with your clear. Amazing first item, even though you don't have a lot of protections to scale up the passive. And it's just good. Like we were talking about how it's a burst meta, and if you're building tanky items, you typically want items that are going to allow you to kill people that are defensive options. Glad Shield, right up that alley. So if you're going in ability caster and you're trying to build more tanky, you're playing like Mordred or something, like along those lines. Not very popular characters right now, let me tell you, but if you are going to play them, Glad Shield is a great option. Just some nice, good damage that affects the wave, helps your clear, and help out a bit. So a solid item that you can build at any point in the build. Pharaoh's Curse. Protections of both, 15% attack speed. So, going to be more for your auto attackers that are building tanky. And then it has an active effect. When I pop this guy. Oh, why can I not buy you? Oh, I have no items. Or I have too many items. Active effect. Does this a little AoE around me. 20% attack speed reduction, 20% movement speed reduction for 6 seconds. 20% is not that high. But it lasts for 6 seconds. So it is noticeable. And it's only a 60-second cooldown. So you can spam this sucker. If you're going to buy it, I'd buy it probably anywhere from 2nd to 4th. You could buy it at any point, like, after your first item. Not the greatest first item, I would say. Just because better to get, like, a better DPS item first. Or a health item, since it has no health. At any point after the first item, I'd say it's pretty solid to grab this. If you're an auto attacker that's looking to really get in there and reduce a lot of action from the opponents. Strong item. Other active items are similar strength, if not stronger, so it's not the most popular in my eyes. Like, I don't really build this very much, but it has a strong effect, and you can definitely make use of this if you're playing like Bologna or Amaterasu, an auto attacker that's trying to dive backliners and be tanky. Stampede is our next item. Now here's an item you need to know. This is probably the best, if not second best, active item in the game. 55 physical protection, 200 health, 5 health regen. Active effect. Let me show you. Anyone in this range on my team gets really fast, gets slow immune, and gains 20% attack speed for 6 seconds. On a 90-second cooldown. Crazy good engage tool. Crazy good disengage tool. Counters a lot of gods. Ymir, Ares, Mordred, 3. A lot of Cupid. A lot of characters just like do not get to play the game very well with this item being meta. And it's just so incredibly strong. You basically just buy it every game. If you're playing anything remotely tanky and you want to live. Or engage. It's just too strong. Makes you so fast. So it's like sprint, but on steroids, if you're thinking of Smite 1 terms. Really, really good item. If you're building active items, and you're building a tank, you probably want this to be one of your 3. You can build it as early as first item, but you can buy it whenever you want in your build. Typically, if you're playing like a straight-up tank, you're going to want this first or second at minimum. And if you have it any later than that, you're probably doing a little bit of trolling. It's just so good. So good. Like, if you have one of these and the other team doesn't, you just have a major advantage in fights. Very, very powerful. Screeching Gargoyle. Here's the other item. Stampede and Screeching Gargoyle are probably the strongest active items in the game right now. 2 of the 3. Strongest off the top of my head. How this works is when you use the active item effect, it's a 90-second cooldown. You do this AoE like Hades 2 thing. Little smaller than
Disappear
Hades 2.
into the cosmos.
Silences for 2 seconds any enemy and reduces their protections by 20%. This is an item you can build as early as first item.
Slain an enemy.
Though, since it doesn't have any health, typically you'd want to get it maybe second item or anywhere later, really. The more Screeching Gargoyles on your team, the better. Giving yourself a 2-second silence with 20% prot shred for 4 seconds is ridiculously strong. This is just an insane item, and you're buying this. You could buy this on all 5 rolls. It is just so good. In the most recent tournament, we were seeing like sometimes like 3 of these and 3 of these on both teams. Because they're just so good. Like, you just give yourself a 2-second CC and it doubles as a massive prot shred. Like, it's just so crazy strong. And you can get this as like a situational item on a damage dealer as well, the Screeching Gargoyle. Like, you just build full damage and you slap a Screeching Gargoyle on it to assist your dive while also increasing your damage. It's just so powerful. So, yeah, really, really strong items. Phoenix Feather. Now, this guy will heal you for a large chunk of your health, plus 30% of your missing health. So the lower health you are, the better it is. And it also does damage based on your max health to enemies in a very small radius around you. Long cooldown, 3 minutes. 65 magic prot, 275 max health. Just looks like that. Pretty solid heal. Is affected by anti-heal. So if they build anti-heal, this is going to feel kind of worthless. And it takes one of your active slots, which is kind of sad. If you're going to build this, I would build it as early as the first item. You could build this first item, though it would prompt them to immediately build anti-heal. You could build this anywhere in your build, really. As long as they have decent magical damage dealers that you're getting protection against. But I wouldn't recommend building this item. Cooldown is really long. Other active items are just better. So, just other items in general are just better. So I just would not waste an active slot on this. Or a relics. Yeah, an active slot. Because, you know, this is a magical protection item. This is a magical protection item. More often than not, I'm going to take the Screeching Gargoyle over the Phoenix Feather. So, yeah, it's kind of lame. We don't love the Phoenix Feather out here, but if it was a lower cooldown, maybe. But 3 minutes versus a seemingly stronger effect on half the cooldown is just... we don't love that. Shield of the Phoenix. There's an item that's pretty solid. Good on gods that are just spamming abilities, being tanky. Mordred with his aspect on can use this quite well. You would build this as early as first item, but you could get it at any point in your build, really. It'll become more relevant as more gods come out. You know, Kulu in Smite 1 is quite useful with Shield of the Phoenix, just spamming those abilities. So this item, especially if the meta shifts up and tanks become more tanky, could get a lot stronger since you'll actually be able to get more procs before you die. So Shield of the Phoenix is a good item that you can build at any point. That's great in lane, great in a fight that goes on for a prolonged
Your Titan
duration.
is under attack.
The only problem is fights don't go on for prolonged durations when people are insta-dying damage dealers. So not the greatest item right now, but there are a few characters that can abuse it. Like I said, the Mordred with his aspect on can use Shield of the Phoenix quite well. Very similar to characters that can use Gladiator's Shield well. Just going Gladiator Shield and Shield of the Phoenix can be a very potent combo for just snowballing in lobbies where maybe people aren't as coordinated or aren't as skilled. These items will just do a lot for you. Prophetic Cloak is better in Smite 1 than it is in Smite 2. It gives you a lot of protections. You have to stack up 20 stacks. How it works is once every 5 seconds, if you hit a god, an enemy god, you'll gain a stack that will give you 1 protection based on the damage type of the god. And then once you have 20 of each of those, your item will evolve, giving you a bunch more protections, and it'll give you a bunch of mitigations depending on how many protections you have. And of course, this is going to give you a good amount of protection up front and some cooldown rate. More protections you have, the better. This is an item that really favors being as tanky as possible. And as we talked about, damage dealers are hitting a little bit hard these days in Smite 2. So an item like this doesn't get as much value. You're gonna want to get this as early as possible if you do get it. Either first or second item at the latest, I would say. That you could get it like third if you really feel comfortable thinking you can get the stacks up. A character like Shock, for example, can stack it quite quickly, even if he buys it a little later in the build. But yeah, it just doesn't fit the way the game is played super well right now. But it is a decent item, and if tankiness becomes more relevant, then Prophetic Cloak will become more relevant. Breastplate of Valor. Prots, mana regen, a lot of cooldown. Passive is if you take a lot of damage, it'll reset all your cooldowns by 1 second. Decent item. You are dying quite quickly these days in Smite 2, so it can get a lot of value. It's kind of counterintuitive because you have to lose a certain amount of health and the item doesn't give you any health. So kind of weird. But the tankier you are, the more useful it is because you'll have more health to chew through and you'll get more procs of this. So it's a decent item. I don't really build it much at all because I just like other items. But if you are to build this, you could build this as early as first item and as late as last item. Really depends when you feel like you need that big burst of cooldown. It is solid, but not my personal favorite. Amanita Charm. Active item. Drop a little mushroom on the ground. Heals 4 times. For a percentage of your HP or any teammate. Minute-long cooldown. Protections of both. Good amount of health regen. Solid item. You want to build this. You could build this as early as first item, as late as last. The thing is, it's an active item. You can only have 3 of them. And as we've seen, Stampede and Screeching Gargoyle are pretty insane. So do you really want to use an active slot on this? Probably not. Up to you. If you're playing a game mode like Assault, obviously really useful. As an Assault, you can't back, so having those heals, having multiple of people with these heals can be very useful, right? So, yeah, good item. Just probably wouldn't build it too often outside of Assault, just because other active items are just more useful. The Poppers. Goat Assault item, yeah. Really good Assault item. Stone of Binding. Here's a crazy good item. Protections of both. And enemy gods hit by hard CCs from you lose 15 physical and magical pride.
I need the jungle
seconds.
buff.
Poppers, thank you very much for the T1er. Welcome, welcome. Stone of Binding. It's just so good if you have those hard CC abilities to proc it. So a character like Sobek, a character like Thor, a character like Thanatos, who can apply that hard CC quite easily, will make really good use of this. It is slightly different from Smite 1. In Smite 1, you can use any CC, so you can slow them and apply binding. But like, so Osiris, if you're a Smite 1 player, like use Stone of Binding really well in Smite 1. Can't really use Stone of Binding that well in Smite 2 as Osiris. You got to get the stun or you got to ult him, right? But Stone of Binding in Smite 2, if you can apply the effect with like a Geb knockup or a Sobek pluck, tail whip, Athena taunt, Thanatos 3, a lot of different ways to apply it. Can be very, very potent because it's 15 prot shred. In Smite 1, you need level 20 to get 16 prot shred. Versus, like, you only get 15 prot shred in Smite 1 on Stone of Binding once you hit level 19. So, Stone of Binding, stronger but harder to get the effect. But it's a good item. Build it. You could build it as early as first item if you really wanted to. Just get the prot shred immediately. But I probably wouldn't recommend it until you get a little bit of health in your build. So, second item on, it's very useful. The earlier the better, since you can get 15 protections as soon as you buy it. It doesn't scale with your level or anything. I think we're going to have to split it into parts, Kodak, because we have been recording this guy for a long time. We'll see where we go with that, though. Leviathan's Hide. Protections. Physical protections. Health. And enemies that hit you with basic attacks lose 10% strength for 4 seconds. Stacks up to 2 times. Alright. Good if you want to be as tanky as possible. Problem is, people die so fast, you just don't get a lot of value from this. If you're going to build this, you'd build it probably like third item or later, since it's going to be a lot better the later you buy it, because people just aren't going to have very much strength early on. The item is just kind of bad.
Your Titan is under attack.
Like, the passive is just outshined by other items. There are better ways to live. It's just not amazing. So, wouldn't build it in its current state. Though it might be better by the time you watch this video. Talisman of Purification. This is Absolution. If you are a Smite 1 player, you know what that means. Magical protections, health, cooldown rate. When you pop it, it's an active item, no longer based on using your ultimate. 3-minute cooldown on this sucker. It'll give CC immunity to me and any allies in this area. So, incredibly good against Ares ult, incredibly good against Fenrir ult, incredibly good against Aladdin ult. Can no longer do this thing if he beats it in time.
You have slain an enemy. Deicide.
So, Talisman of Purification is the third of the triumvirate of best active items in the game, alongside Stampede and Screeching Gargoyle, where it's just so potent of an effect. Long cooldown, but incredibly potent effect. These are probably like my favorite active items to go, because all of their effects are just so incredibly potent. Gives you a nice magical prot and mixes very well with the Stampede, right? Because this is physical protection, this is magical. You just build those back to back, and you're just doing great things as a tank, supporting your team. Not only like saving them from Ares ults and Fenrir ults and whatnot, but also giving them massive movement speed buffs and attack speed buffs that'll help engaging as well as disengaging. Just incredible tools, really. Oni Hunter's Garb makes you really tanky and gives you a lot of magical protections. Stats are great. Great for survivability. But as we keep hounded on, as a tank, it's better to just avoid damage as much as possible than it is to try and soak damage. Because carry characters just hurt so much. So you're just going to get more out of stopping them from dealing damage to you by either being faster than them with Stampede, or getting rid of their CC with the Talisman of Purification, or just stopping them from using their ability entirely with Screeching Gargoyle. That'll also allow you to kill them quicker. So it's just Oni Hunters falls out of favor a lot. If you were to build this, you could build it as early as first and as late as 6th, and it's really fine at any point in the game. But yeah, just the way the game is played, it's a bit out of favor, I would say. Out of the Nemean Lion falls into a similar category. Physical protections, a lot of health regen. The passive effect, it's good against ability or against basic attack characters, or so you would think. But even with the active effect reflecting 30% of all damage back to attackers as physical damage. Oh, it's 30% of all damage. It's like a Kuzenbo too. Huh. Hadn't noticed that. This thing sucks. Because unlike Thorns, which is probably the strongest variant of damage reflect we've ever seen in Smite, this guy reflects damage after mitigations instead of before mitigations. So if you are getting hit by, 200 damage basic attack that it would have otherwise hit you for 500, you're only reflecting off of the 200, not the 500. And so you just get barely any value from this. I fought into Height of the Nemean Lion plenty of times now, and I just do not notice the damage reflect. Like, I see the thing pop up, they say, activated Height of the Nemean Lion, and then I just keep hitting them to see, like, okay, let's see if it actually deals, like, a lot of damage to me. It doesn't. It is bad. So, yeah, just a bad item right now. Could be good in the future. Could build that as early as you want, really, if it were good, as long as it fits the situation. Probably would build it maybe like second item if I were to build it, because I'd get like a Glad Shield first to give me a bit better damage, and then the Nemean is more of a counter build option. But yep, you can get that whenever. If it's good, build it, but right now it's not. Shoguns, big attack speed buff, only 20% though. In Smite 1, it's 30%, right? Actually, it's 40% in Smite 1, isn't it? Either 30 or 40. I can't even remember anymore. I think it's 40. But this will give you a lot of attack speed. A bit of magic prots, good bit of health. Solid if you're trying to boost an auto attacker and you're playing with your auto attacker. You could get this as early as first item if you're in lane and you're an auto attacker like a Bologna or something. But similar to the other items that aren't built as much, this one falls into a similar category of other things are just better. And it's not like people have a problem with attack speeds, since, items for your auto attack damage dealers give you quite a bit of attack speed. They're hitting large amounts of attack speed, like 3+ even without this. So it's just like kind of unnecessary, I would say. Just don't really need it. Could change, but the item is decent. Just outshined, really. Glorious Pridwin. Protections of each. Cooldown rate. And it's an active item now instead of a passive effect off of when you cast your ult. Gives you a shield, similar to Pridwin in Smite 1, and then it pops. Similar to Pridwin in Smite 1. The shield is based on my protections. Problem is, the stats are terrible, and it takes an active slot. So I don't really want to buy... how much does this cost? I don't really want to buy 25, 50 gold worth of item for 25 of each protection. That is pretty terrible. And then the active effect is being worse than a lot of other active effects, just really unattractive. So Pridwin is kind of lame. If you are going to buy it, you're going to want a lot of protections first before you buy it. So if Thebes was in the meta, you could buy it as early as right after Thebes, since Thebes is such a massive protection bonus. But realistically, if you're going more of a standard tank build, you might end up buying this like as early as third. But realistically,
I'm coming for you, laddie!
don't buy it. Cersei Sexstone. Here's like, we look at like the top echelon of active items. Cersei Sexstone is kind of up there. What it does is an active item that gives you a bunch of health, regen, cooldown rate, and it turns you into a pig. And you run forward. And you knock up the first guy you hit. The big thing about this is it gives you CC immunity when you use it. And you get that mobility. So you get a CC immune dash, basically. And that can be very useful if you're playing a tankier character that doesn't have a lot of mobility, such as Ymir. So if you play Ymir, and you don't want to die to the constant CC that's hitting you, and you need some more mobility, your wall's not good enough, then a Cersei Sexstone can do you quite a good service to survive. Really, really strong effect. 90-second cooldown. So, pretty solid. Very solid. The only thing is, like, those other 3 that we talked about already are just so strong, so. It can be tough to fit it in. You, like I said, would only really build it if you are struggling with escaping. Or engaging. You could use this as a tool, like if your Ares or something, you just use your this, and then you Ares ult them. And then, you know, you can blink during your Ares ult now, so you can just use the pig to get in, ult them, and then blink back and pull them pretty far. So, useful item. Just need the right niche and the right situation to make it worth it. But definitely consider building it. As early as 2nd or 3rd, probably. So, like, you could do, like, a this and a this and a this. Yeah. You get some physical procs, you get some nice magical procs, and then you get a bunch of health. Pretty good mix. If you're playing, like, a straight-up tank, getting your active items as early as possible is kind of, like, the best thing you can do. Because they're just going to be your highest impact stuff. Spirit Robe. Solid item. Anytime you get hit by a hard CC effect, you get 40 of each protection, and it's 30 protections of each at base. So you get 70 protections from this guy. Of each. That's an 140 protection item. That is the most protections you're going to get from any item in this game. So, the more valid protection builds are, the better this is. But we are in a meta where people die, and people die fast, and it doesn't matter what you build. So, building to just not take the damage in the first place through either moving really fast or making yourself immune to CC or giving yourself a CC immune dash is just going to be better than having a bunch of prots. So, Spirit Robe, good item. That would be a great item if the meta was different, if the game worked different. But if you are trying to be highest protections possible, this is the way to go. So if this isn't enough, you could slap that on too. And just try and live. You know, great item for living once you have a good base of protections and health. Mainly health. So you would probably get this as early as 4th. Mystical Mail. We're almost there, guys. We're getting there. Mystical Mail. Physical protections. Large amount of health, 400. And it'll deal ticking damage around you per second. The weird thing is you can't see it. So, I don't see my little Mystical Mail aura. Just have to assume that it's happening. I'm sure that'll get changed at some point.
You have slain
I'm sure.
Deicide.
Yeah, Mystical Mail, solid item. Deals damage and gives you tanky stats. More of a item for a character that's trying to be tanky yet also kill. So like maybe like a Hercules or a Mordred or something like that. You'd get this as early as possible, as early as feasible. Stats are good, and it gives you more damage early on, even though the damage scales with your level, simply because people will have less protections earlier on. So you'll just get more value from the passive early. Helps you clear waves.
Double kill.
Deicide.
Triple kill.
So,
Deicide.
yeah, Mystical Mail is a decent item. You could buy it at any point, but if you're going to buy it, I would imagine that you're using it to abuse the early game presence from it on a character that's just trying to be tanky and run at people. Which, as you may be aware, is not the greatest strategy, being tanky and running at people with how quickly you can die regardless of what you build. So, it's a solid item that could be better if the game was played differently. And we'll see if that happens in future changes to the game. I'm sure something will happen. But yeah, Mystical Mail is a decent item. And then Hussar's Wings. Now, that's a crazy good item. Do we know if Spirit Robe still only activates if you're affected by the CC? That I do not know. Or I'm not sure what you mean by that, Death. But it lasts for 4 seconds. Or it's supposed to last for 4 seconds. Couldn't tell you. If you're mid CC immune during ult, does it not activate? If you're mid CC immune. Oh, you mean like if you get knocked up? If someone hits you with a knock-up but you're knock-up immune? Yeah, you actually have to get hard CC'd.
Your Titan is under attack.
Who's Husser? Some dude with wings, Jev. So this item is really good. It gives you protections of both, a butt ton of health, and it makes you immune to all slows for the rest of the game. As long as you have the item, you are immune to slows. So characters like Ymir, characters like Ares just start crying when you buy this item. Because it's just so good against them. Particularly Ares. Like Ymir can still like kind of wall you off, right? And make you limited there. But like Ares, like he chains you and then you're just still just ignoring him, you know? So Ares, like a lot of the items in the game kind of just make it so like he doesn't have fun. It's kind of terrible. So it's an RIP for Ares. This does cost 3,000 gold. So not exactly the easiest thing to grab. If you're going to build it, you can build it as early as second item. But in most cases, you're probably going to get it fourth or later because of the price point. So unless you just really get abused by slows and they have a lot of them, you are not buying this until like 4th to 6th. But you could buy it as early as 2nd, I would say. Just get like an active item first, like a Stampede, and then get that. Like if you're like a Ymir into an Ares, and you just really need that slow immunity, or vice versa. If you're an Ares into Ymir, maybe you want that. You could do something like this. So most of the time, it's just better to get that other active item, because the beads can serve you a similar purpose, and also help your team more, and give you, you know, perhaps a little bit better utility. And yeah, Hutzer's items is great. Last but not least, we have our hybrid items. We've almost made it to the end of our long spiel here. So these are going to be items that give you a bit of strength or intelligence, and also some survivability through protections. Some are better than others. They are not all created equal. We'll start with Triton's Conch. 20 strength, 45 intelligence, 300 HP. Gives you a passive effect that gives you and everyone around you extra strength and intelligence based on your level. That ends up being, what's that? 17 strength buff at level 20. And more importantly, 30 intelligence buff for your whole team. So for you, it's 37 strength and 75 intelligence. So definitely a little bit better in the intelligence department. And more importantly, it's a lot of health. So you have to pay 2,800 for this guy. The earlier you get this guy, the better. First item, solid. But you could get it later in your build, just whenever it's comfortable, really. And it's mainly for like your like tankier guys that have decent scaling as your like damage item, or like one of your 2 to 3 damage items, depending on how aggressive you want to be. You could build this on like a Ymir maybe. I personally don't love it. I just think it's better to get something else that's a bit more like either offensively weighted or defensively weighted. But it's okay. Triton's Conch. I could see it getting a buff. I think at one point it was a little too strong, so that's why it's in this state now. But it's a decent item that you could buy at any point. Golden Blade gives you strength, health, and attack speed, and you'll deal additional damage with your basic attacks as physical damage to any enemy that's like close to the one you're hitting with the basic attack. Scales off of your protections. 10% of your protections plus 25. So it's a whole lot of extra damage. And something I didn't notice, until someone pointed it out to me, is that you deal that additional damage to the target that you're hitting as well as the things that are around it. So you see that 29 that I just got? That's the Golden Blade.
Double kill.
So it is pretty good for additional basic attack damage. You'd be building that as early as possible, as it'll assist in your clear potential. So just first item on something like an Amaterasu or a Bellona. On your just tanky strength scalers that are looking to auto attack a lot. It is a little outshined right now buy stuff like Chin's Blade, because Chin's Blade is just better for killing people, and Amaterasu and Bologna don't struggle that much with clear, or at least Bologna doesn't. So Amaterasu would probably be the one you'd build this on more often than not. First item, if you're looking to be like a solo laner. But it's a decent item. It's relatively cheap, 2,300, right? So not a bad item. Eye of the Storm is a very interesting active item. They give strength and protections, as well as a little bit of health. How it works is, when you put that on, it puts this little area around me that vortexes opponents that are caught in it. But it takes my health, a percentage of my health, 3% of my health, for every second I have it active. The neat thing is, that percentage of my health that it takes, I can mitigate with protections. So I have the Eye of the Storm prots and the Stampede prots. This thing is taking 3% of my max health as magical damage. Oh, I should be saying the magical prots then. I have 20 magic prots and 45 magic prots here, so I have a total of 118 magical protections. So I'm losing health a lot slower than I otherwise would. I'm only losing 40 of my HP, whereas 3% of 2952 is, what, like 90? Yeah, 88.56. So I'm dying a lot slower because of the protections. And I can toggle this on and off. Can be a little bit more useful on something like a Cabrakan when you're like using your 3s to add on to the CC chain. But yeah, that's Eye of the Storm. Similar to other active items, it just gets outshined by the best active items. It's a cool niche item, but it really is just kind of worse than the other options, so it's a little bit weaker, I would say. And yeah, I could see it becoming more relevant if
Your
other
Titan is under
active
attack.
items become worse or they buff it in some way. Drops are on, and yes, they are. This is like 3 to 4 hours long. Yep, we're at the 2-hour, 40-minute mark. We should be able to finish this in 3 hours. Might have to break it up into parts in terms of video length to make it more consumable, but here we are. Talking about Void Shield. 20 strength, 45 prot, 100 health. Passive, people lose their physical protections. Good item. Build it probably third or after, because you want to get good value from the 15% physical prot reduction. Actually a really good item. You could build this. Typically, we've been seeing it in like Thanatos builds where he goes like full prot reduction with Stone of Binding, Oathsworn Spear, Void Shield type of thing. Or you could build it if you're just trying to be a facilitator as a tanky diver, but you just want to like help the squad out a little bit more by having some protection reduction. Just throw a Void Shield in your build towards the end of it. Pretty strong item though. Good protection reduction. Make people even squishier than they already are. People are pretty squishy, so you make them even more squishy later on. Yeah, unfortunately can't get the Bologna skin anymore. Shield Splitter. Another active item. Gives strength and prots of both. And pretty good against shields, as the name may suggest. If they have a shield, deals damage as true damage to the first enemy god hit. If they have a shield, you reduce the shield by half and gain a shield equal to the amount reduced. This is the only anti-shield item, I think, in the game right now. This is what it looks like. I swear that was supposed to hit. Am I stupid? Why does it not hit at the end of it? That is actually criminal. Why is the targeter so much longer than the actual thing? That is crazy. So yeah, this item kind of sucks. I can definitely see it getting buffed. Like I said, it's kind of like the only anti-shield item in the game. So shielding is actually quite strong. You play against like multiple shells, it can be quite annoying to go into that, since you don't really have a way around it besides just dealing more damage. So the Shield Splitter is a niche item that just isn't very good at doing the one thing that it does, even though it's the only thing that does it. Which is kind of sad. But yeah, that's the shield splitter. Not a great item. If you're to build this, heck, you'd probably get it second item or later. But it's pretty bad. So unless this gets buffed, probably wouldn't build it. Shitter Shield, on the other hand, this thing has a billion stats. 20 of each prot, 150 mana, 200 max mana, or 150 health, 200 max mana. And when you're over 75% HP, you gain 40 strength and intelligence, while under 75% HP, 20 prots. So you can either get 40 of each prot with all that health and mana, or you can get 20 of each prot and 40 of strength and intelligence with that health and mana. So it's a lot of stats. Really, really good item. You can slip this in whenever you feel it's necessary, really. You could buy this first item, you could buy this last item. It's just a lot of stats. Because you get good damage, and you get good tankiness, and you get good health and mana. So it's just a solid item at any point in the game. Only thing is it costs $26.50, which is a little bit of a high price point. So, you know, like typically your first items for people that are building this, which is more of a tankier item that gives a little bit of damage. You know, if you're thinking like Glad Shield buyers, this is a lot cheaper, right? So, great stats, decently high price. And now my items are out of order. I hate it here. So we've talked about all these items. We still have to talk about Lifebinder. This is a active item, which is just Shield Splitter if it was good. How this one works. Oh, and it actually fits the targeter too. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, apparently the targeter says this should hit. Doesn't it? That does hit. So that marks any enemy that I hit, or any enemy god that I hit, deals damage to any enemy that I hit, so I can hit minions with this thing. Can clear with this thing. Gives me intelligence, max health, 3 health regen. You can build this as early as first item. If people are building it, it's probably going to be like an Aphrodite, or like a Ra, or a Baron Somni, something like that would be the people who build this the most often. And so what happens when you hit gods with it, though, is it marks them with that little heart thing that you see there. And if I hit them, it gives me a health shield. And doesn't it heal too? Yeah, it heals and gives you a shield. So really, really strong effect, Lifebinder.
Your Titan is under attack.
And that shield can be for you or a teammate. So very, very strong item, Lifebinder. First item is definitely where you build this normally. Just give you good lane pressure. Good, and help your teammates a lot in fights with the heals and the shields. Helm of Radiance. 60 intelligence, good prots. When you take physical damage, you gain prots up to 5 stacks. So that's a total of 50 protections, 50 physical protections, and 60 intelligence. It's an okay item. Used to be a lot better. Got nerfed a bit. Probably wouldn't buy it. If you were to buy it, you want it probably as early as possible. But it's more of a situational item that's worse than other situational items to solve a similar problem. So I probably just wouldn't build it in general right now. But you could build this in any slot just whenever you just feel like you need the survivability, but you also want a bit of damage. But it's just not great. Rod of Asclepius. Active item. Gotta sell some of these active items so I have room for it. Intelligence. Health. Max health. And some health regen. Increases the healing of me and enemy or any teammates that are near me. 15% increased healing, so pretty good. And more importantly, the active effect gets rid of all anti-heal effects for 3 seconds on allies near me in this range. So if I'm looking to provide a massive raw heal to someone with my aspect, with my ult, or just a lot of healing in general, they have like a Phoenix Feather, for example, or I have a Phoenix Feather, then I could pop this, cleanse all the anti-heal for 3 seconds, and pop my Phoenix Feather and heal for 1 billion. So solid item, but it is similarly to other active items, just outweighed by the best active items, being Stampede, Screeching Gargoyle, Talisman of Purification, and Circe's Hexstone. You know, you wouldn't see that built very often, this Asclepius, but it is a fun item. Definitely could be built if you are going to those heavy healing builds, particularly if you're going like a Life Binder or something. And mesh quite well with the Life Binder. Gem of Isolation. 50 intelligence, good chunk of health, and all your abilities will slow by 15%. You would build this as early as first item. You could do that because it's a good hybrid, a lot of health, good intelligence. Most of these hybrid items you can get away with first item just because they've got a lot of stats in a lot of different categories. So the only thing about gem is, like, just once again, other items are just better. That 15% slow is not that potent. I could just be getting a better item that will give me more aggressive pressure or more defensive capabilities. So Gem of ISO is just kind of meh. I don't really care about it. But you could build that on anyone that's, you know, using a lot of abilities with lots of duration, long duration, such as Poseidon can use Gem of Isolation well. Kukulkan can use Gem of Isolation well. But yeah, probably would just not build that. Jade Scepter, another active item with intelligence and health, and then if I use this sucker, I knock people up and reduce their strength and intelligence. Really nice if someone's diving you super heavily and you can't get them off. Like if you're a Zeus, for example, and you have a lot of options in your build to counter build, so you could go this if like a Nemesis is diving you really hard, and like very hard to just react to somebody who's just gonna, like, you're walking up on them and they just do that, right? So it can be quite good to peel for yourself. Can 100% see building this as a defensive option if you're just suffering heavy dive. Kukulkan can also use it pretty good because it sets up his ult. So I can just use this and then use my Kukul ult. So can set you up too. But mainly just to peel for yourself real quick. Pretty low cooldown and hard to react to as an opponent trying to kill you. So, can be very nice. Maybe like a Zeus or something can use this well. But you are giving up damage for it, right? Because your other items will be dealing so much damage when you purchase them. So, up to you whether you buy it. If you're going to buy it, you'd buy it later in your build as a situational buy. Somewhere 4th or later. More often than not, I would say. Gem of Iso is pretty good on Aspect Hecate. See, like, I could see that, but at the same time, like, why not just get, like, a Soul Reaver and just deal more damage? Or, like, a Soul Gem and heal, you know? Voidstone. Intelligence, Magic Pot, Health. Reduces magical pots in an area around you, similar to Void Shield, just, you know, the intelligence version that reduces magical. Build it in a similar fashion. Build it later in your build, typically, to help out the team in the fight, and it gives you a little bit of damage. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Scepter of Dominion. Active item. Intelligence. Good chunk of health. And mana. And this is a really interesting one. Because what it does is you drop a field that spawns 2 seconds after you choose the area to drop it. And anything in that field that gets caught
is under attack.
Does not take any damage and will not be able to move. You can beads it. You can use CC immunity to get out of it. But nothing in here can take damage. Or be CC'd or anything. Everything just freezes. Works on the Titan, I do believe, as well. Works on literally everything. So quite a unique item. If other active items were worse, I feel like this would be a lot more valuable. Oh, so it doesn't work on the Titan. I'm not sure if it works on the towers or anything, though. That fires... Yeah, that was cool. But very, very cool item. But you see, like, when I use it, the Titan just stops dealing damage to me. So a lot of cool stuff can happen with that item. Kind of wish it was more meta. It's very, very cool. It is a little bit outweighed and out-consistencied, if that's a word, by the other actives that are, you know, the strongest. The ones that we keep talking about. The Stampede, the Gargoyle, the Purification, and the Thirsty Sexstone. But with just a small tweaks to maybe the stronger items, we could definitely see Scepter of Dominion being a more valuable pickup with a very cool effect. Triton's Conch, we already talked about. The items got out of order here somehow. We only have 3 more items. Helm of Darkness is 1. Active item. Gives you intelligence and prots of both. 90-second cooldown. You could pop this sucker. Gives you like a little Loki invis that can also go through player-made walls. Is the big one. And you don't get revealed unless you reveal yourself with a basic attack or casting an ability or the timer runs out. The 6-second timer. This is a very unique counter to somebody like Odin. Can you still use Hexstone when you're Ymir-ulting? No, you can't. So, yeah, like a character like Zeus, character like Medusa can use this item to escape an Odin ult, where they otherwise would not.
Your Titan is under attack.
You can also use this to, like, sneak up on people and, like, drop a surprise Hades ult or a surprise Geb ult on their heads. You can pop this during abilities as well. So, like, if they don't know that I'm... Like, if I'm a Geb, I can go into my role and then pop the Helm of Darkness and sneak up on people. Or, like, since I'm, for the sake of demonstration purposes, I could probably do it with Aladdin here, too. Go invisible. And they got no idea where I just jumped to, right? So if I'm escaping, like, good tool to get away. I probably would never actually do that, but you could do that. Just do that little extra invisibility. So just help with the engages, makes it so you don't need to get like blink to engage as Geb, for example, or blink as Hades. Like you can, you know, either engage other ways and save your blink for other things, or you can just get a different relic entirely. To engage makes it a little nicer.
Disappear into the cosmos.
So a very cool item that you can definitely build. Typically build it on characters that aren't going to build the other active items as much. But this is like just under like the strongest active items, strong item that you can definitely build in certain situations, such as the ones we described with like Hades and Geb and stuff. But yeah, Helm of Darkness, cool item. Consider building it. You would get that later in your build after you have like all the core stuff done, and you just need like stuff that's going to make you that much stronger in the fight. So our last 2 items are pretty similar actually in terms of their use cases. Sphere of Negation, stat stick, bunch of intelligence, bunch of prots. 3250. Probably would like never buy this in its current state, because I just cannot see myself spending 3250 for stats like that. But if you just want to be tanky to the magical damage that's destroying you, you can't think of any other way to save yourself. I mean, there are a lot of ways you can go to save yourself. But if you can't think of anything else and you want some extra damage as well, like Sphere of Negation is your guy. You'd be building this very late in your build, probably as a 5th or 6th item. It's a very similar luxury to, you know, your Avatar's Parashu and your Dreamer's Idol. But yeah, I just probably just would not build it. It just does not look very good. So yeah, I haven't built it at all, and I don't plan on building it either. Wish Granting Pearl. Similar, like I said, and reason to build this guy. Just a bunch of stats. Bunch of intelligence, bunch of mana, bunch of health. 3550. That's a lot of money. I'm not spending that on that. But that's just me. If you're going to buy that, you got to buy it 6th. It's just too much money. I don't see it being bought anywhere but 6th. I guess you could buy it earlier. The stats are a lot. So, I mean, if you just really want to drop a pretty penny on an item that just gives you a billion stats, go for it. But I just don't see those stats being worth it. Like, almost every other item in the game I'd rather buy. So, yeah. That's Wish Granting Pearl. And with that, my friends, we have made it through every single item in Smite 2. That's what they all do. Hope you guys learned a thing or two or 1,000. But that is going to be everything from me. Oh, and it's been a real trek. 3 hours of pure Smite discussion with myself. Yeah. But hope you guys got something out of that. Figured out all the different items and all the different use cases and applications. Well, if it doesn't end up being multiple videos, we'll probably just definitely be time stamping the different sections here, the relics, the consumables, the starters. But you're not going to hear that at the start of the video, so why am I even saying it? So thank you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you have any ideas for Smite 2 content that you'd like to see, feel free to mention it in the comments section down below. But appreciate you guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.